everybody. If it's Wednesday, it's Warhammer, and that must mean it's time for another episode of Warhammer Weekly. Joining me, as always, is my co-host, Tom. What's up, buddy? How you doing? You're on mute, Tom. You muted yourself because you were eating chips, and then you forgot you muted yourself because you were eating chips.
Hello, friends.
There you go. Okay. Just A+, as always. That's what we're delivering. This week, it's time for Destruction. What will hopefully be the easiest week, which is good because I don't have a long night. I have a very early flight tomorrow morning. And it's been a very, very long week. So, we're going to talk about Destruction today. Tom, we did Chaos last week. What I did last week was I said, there's a couple things that we had reviewed in the order that I said I'd take it back on. Okay. And this week I thought back on my takes on Chaos. And here's the thing. In the comments this week, a lot less defense of any of our takes. Like week 1, people called us out on the Stormcast Banner Bearer, which I came around on, and a couple other type units.
Yeah.
Week 2 with
no,
Chaos,
I was big on that.
I know.
No, to be clear.
You were right. It was me. Yes.
Thank you, audience, for seeing reason.
They're with you, Tom. The audience is with you. But the reality is the comments last week, not so much. Everybody was more or less on board with the Chaos takes. We had a little bit of results over the weekend. Nighthaunt seem as completely busted, silly as they are. We still haven't talked about them yet, but we will be. I
have no idea what you're talking about.
I don't believe in any of the stats or anything like that that's come out. I'm not looking at any of that because none of that matters. The sample size is effectively nothing. I agree with Honest Wargamer Rob's takes. Like, you can't use stats like this. It's just way too noisy as the data.
No. Right.
But that being said, I don't need data to know that Nighthaunt are busted sideways. Like, I can just look at the facts on offer and see that they're insane. And frankly, here's my call. You ready for this call, Tom?
Sure. Hit it.
I think, if anything, with Nighthaunt, whatever their imaginary win rate is in the statistics, stop hitting your mic, is low by actual reality. Okay? Like,
oh, really?
Yeah. Which is like, it's so outside the box, and I think it's still undercounted. It's undercounted because not enough people who actually, the skill ceiling on Nighthaunt is so high. Not enough. There was enough people piloting them who don't know how to actually play the edition yet. Like, because again, as I've said on this show, if you think you know how to play Warhammer and then you play AOS 4th, you don't. You will think you do. You will play and it will feel like a normal game, and then you will play somebody 3 or 4 games in who actually knows what they're doing, and they will absolutely house you, and you will not see it coming because you don't know how to play Warhammer anymore. But at any rate, I think if people playing Nighthaunt actually knew what they were doing, they would have won even more. So, there you go.
Amazing.
That's what I think. Anyways, now that we've rambled for a minute to give everybody a chance to start piling in here, get on in here, everybody. Did Heat Knights do well at tournaments? Yeah, Heat Knights did okay. As I said, I think they had good scrolls. It's nothing. The Heat Knights are in such an interesting place because their scrolls were fine. There were plenty of good scrolls in that book that I think are actually well designed. The battle traits are terrible and the battle formations are underwhelming. But, like, we've had armies in the past that were just, like, good scroll the army, and that's how they won. They largely didn't have those other abilities, and this is another case of that. Okay. So, anyways, hey, let's get into the armies, shall we?
Absolutely.
Okay, I'm grabbing my paper here to do my timestamps. Let's get going. We'll start right about here. 4:20, time to talk about Gitz. Okay. The Gloomspite Gitz. Yes, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe, do things that make dings, be cooler. All right, here we go. So, Tom, we've still got a battle trait. It's still the moon. It works like you think the moon does.
Yep.
The relevant thing here is your non-squig moon clan get +3 to control score. Your squig units get to reroll their random move. Your Troggoth units get +1 to save, which is, like, wild. That's wild that they wrote that bonus. It's wild that I just read the first 2 things I did, and then I read the third thing I did. Okay.
Yep. One of these is not like the other.
Yeah, indeed. And then Spider Fang, your units irrelevantly hit crit on a 5+, which would be amazing on anything else in the game except the units that it happens to be on here.
It also affects companion.
Yeah, yeah, sure. Mm-hmm. Yep. Cool. Cool stuff. And then you have the moon, and it starts like how you think it does. It starts in a quarter, and then you roll a die, and on a 1 to 3 it doesn't move, and on a 4+ it does move, and once it moves off the board and blah blah blah, you lose your battle trait.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so that's it. I mean, look, the troll one is like so much better than the other ones. It's scary. Like, I don't know how they wrote these 4 things and said, yeah, those all look about the same. Like, okay. The moon is still underwhelming, but you know, pretty good if you're trolls. Formations, you got your Squiglance, which is just +1 to attack of all your various gob and jaw bitey related attacks. You've got Trogherd, which is actually really strong, which is every time they fight, after the ability is resolved, they heal D3. You've got the Moon Clan one, which is not as good as the Skaven one, which I didn't think was that good. Oh, maybe that's one thing that people are trying to sell me on, which was the Clan Pestilence thing. I did not watch any of the results from this weekend where I saw Clan Pestilence doing well, so it must not have been enough. At any rate, this one's worse than that one that I didn't think was very good. Although, well, that's not true. I thought the ability on Pestilence is pretty good. I just think that the units that they had to use it with were all bad. And it's much the same story here, but worse, because these 3 units have to be in combat, and then they get to pile in and do a little bit of mortal wounds. It's fine, I guess, if you really like playing just like piles and piles of goblins. It's like an okay thing to happen at the end of the turn, basically. And then there's a Spider Fang thing that doesn't matter because it's about Spider Fang. So, it's a neat ability. It just doesn't matter because it's on Spider Fang.
Well, I mean, maybe like there's maybe some deep striking shenanigans here, right?
No.
Okay.
I really don't think so. And I'll talk about it when we get to the Spider Fang, but I just think the entire Spider Fang is a no. Like, the critical pieces just aren't here. The abilities aren't here. You know, like, you're not gonna, regular Skitter Strand or Ragnaroks are way over expensive for what they are and what they're capable of and everything. Sure. Like, and that's what this entire ability relies on, right?
Yeah.
So like, if you, it's quite the definition of throwing good money after bad. All right. Heroic traits and artifacts. Yeah, I mean, they have Fight Another Day, which is the good thing that Skaven have. It's a pretty good ability. Like, retreating away is really good at this before anything fights. It's obviously very strong. We talked about it a ton with Skaven. This is just a copy paste of that ability, and it's really good. And then, of course, Loon Touched, which is, if you're not a wizard, you're Wizard 1. Otherwise, add 1 to casting rolls. Good in either way you decide to take it. Right? Cool. So, there you go. Right?
Yeah.
I mean, those are the 2 you're going to take. It's going to be one of those.
It's fine. Yep.
Yep, they're both fine. The Clammy Cowl is fine enough on certain particular units that you want to be big enough that it'll actually absorb it. It's worthless on any foot hero. The Backstabber's Blade is bad. And the Leering Git Shield is, like, probably mostly bad. It's okay. There are a lot of units that just roll tons of dice in this edition. That's the only thing that gives me slight pause to make it okay. Potentially on a troll, because they can actually just heal through that.
Yeah.
That would be my one choice for that one. So it's either the cowl or the shield. Honestly, I think I'd rather have the neg one to be hit all the time. Since it's just attacks, it's both shooting and melee for the Clammy Cowl. Which is strong.
Yeah, think about that on like a big old troll.
Exactly.
The dang cold. I think that's not too bad.
Yeah, you're +1 to save, you're -1 to be hit. Like, you know, this is building up, right? And we're not done yet, of course. You're healing D3 every time you fight. You're healing D6 at the start of each of your turns. Okay. Right? That's a lot is going on there. That is a hard unit to kill. Your spell lore for Gloomspite is, like, interesting and kind of okay. It's somewhat bad, somewhat good. It's sort of very much a 50-50 thing. Your unlimited spell is a point blank aura of -1 to hit. Okay, so it's never really going to hit shooting very often unless they're like super close to your guy.
Mm-hmm.
In which case they were already neg 1 to hit if they're targeting that little goblin, and so it doesn't matter too much probably. But it's very good in melee. I mean, there's a lot of anything that's like neg 1 to hit is a pretty strong thing, and you can't just have all your little heroes emanated out. So I don't want to say it's bad. It casts on a 7, which is very high, so you're unlikely to like you can't. Let's say you have 3 wizards, which you don't, but let's just imagine you do, and you kind of have them spread throughout your line. Realistically, you're going to fail 1 or 2 of those every turn, right? You've got the Hand of Gork, which is a teleport, but only within 24 inches, but still good. Teleports are good. Cast on a 7. And you've got Spore Maw, which is bad. So. And they're all on a 7. Spore Maw should be like a 5. That's ridiculous for that to be on a 7. It's so terrible. Okay. I'm really low. Who's really low? The Big Applegate. I don't know. Are you saying my voice sounds really low or what? Let me look at my audio. I can crank it up a little bit. All right. Hopefully that's better. We'll see. Okay. Cool. Let's keep going. Boop, boop, boop. Your manifestation lore is your manifestation lore. I guess we can talk about Kragnos now, so we don't have to talk about him in every other thing. I mean, he was already in the preview article.
Right.
Excuse me. I'm so sorry, everybody. I apologize. That came out of nowhere. What do you let's just start with Kragnos here, okay? Kragnos is 680 points. So here's my question for you. Is Kragnos worth it? Given what he can do here. In his new form.
I think it depends on the army, to be honest.
Okay. Is he worth it in Gitz?
Nope.
I agree. There's no way I would take this guy in Gitz. I can think of a few destruction armies I could think of a build for him in. It isn't this one.
Right. Like, he doesn't gain any of the aspects that get, like, there's nothing that Gitz brings him or that he brings them that's worthwhile. We'll see it later with some of the armies that there are some really neat synergies, some threats that he brings in those other armies that we just don't see here.
Right. Like, realistically, maybe your Squigalanche wants to charge a lot, so this does increase your movement to some degree. But like, it's you're really looking at like the end of Empires, and that's it. You already have things that can gum up the works. Like, you don't need him to be holding stuff up or something, and he's a bad piece for that anyways, because he's not actually that tough. He's like 4 up, 5 up with 18 health. It's not for that amount of points. You know, if you just replace that with a pile of goblins, right, that's going to be a way better sort of just like board control, objective control thing than him sitting there, right?
Yeah.
He's just so many points in this army.
I don't like him in Gitz, is the short answer. What I will say is this. I like his profiles. His profiles are nice in an edition that seems to have had decreased damage. I think that he does quite a bit of damage, and if you can keep him alive, I think he will earn his points back.
It's fair enough. Yeah, I'm suspect of that, but maybe not completely against it. I'm give or take on him. 680 is so much, right? That's my issue. Like, that's so much for just a melee dork.
There will be armies that that will really make use of him. Gitz is not one of those.
Yeah, let's talk Scraggy. Okay, so Scragrot is Scragrot. He does what you think he does. You know, 6 up, 4 up dude, Wizard 2, right? He's a War Master. He gets to still choose whether or not the moon moves, which is the reason you're taking this guy, right? Like, ultimately, that's the thing. Okay. Now, he does have a perfectly fine spell. It's like, okay, it can do some mortal wounds. That's fine. It's going to do like 4 or 5 mortal wounds probably on average, which is good. It's better than average for spells.
Right.
And he has his like redeploy thing, which is really, really strong. Right? Anytime you see minimum 4 redeploy, it's really strong. Scragrot can take the Moon Clan Agitators, which is the Rabble Rouser and the Loon Boss, 2 things we're going to talk about in just a moment in his battalion, as well as any Gloomspite gets. He's only 220 points. My honest answer on him is I think he's really good.
Yeah, I mean he enables some utility
Mm-hmm.
and some options that you're just not going to get otherwise. In the new hero economy, him bringing 2 wizard spells is a strength, um, because you don't want to load up on other heroes, right?
That's
And
right.
so he lets you bring those extra tools that you're going to want to be deploying anyways. So overall, I'm positive on Scraggy. Although I reckon like it hurts that he lost his shooting attacks. He lost his nick it. Like he lost some of his utility
Yeah,
that he
yeah.
had before.
Yep.
And so I feel that like when I look over his scroll, I wonder, is it enough for 220?
Yeah, he can be teleported with the Hand of Gork, yeah. Just to answer that question that was in the chat. Yeah, I mean, I'll be honest, this army doesn't really, like, you know, we've mentioned on the first show that sort of our evaluative criteria is how do you cheat, how do you break the rules, that kind of thing, right? Because that's where the power lies. And this army as a whole really doesn't do it. Destruction as a faction really doesn't do it. With one very glaring, notable exception.
I don't know about.
That we will talk about. Um, so, you know, like, but he does it in interesting ways, in both breaking your faction rule to actually make it good and giving you the redeploy. All right, regular loon boss on foot. He's fine. Like, if you're going to use a bunch of dumb grots, like if that's your idea, you just want a bunch of dumb goblins.
Yeah.
Right? Like, he's perfectly acceptable. He's way too expensive for what he is at 130 points. That is way too many points for this guy. And the only thing you're taking him so you can return the D6 slain models, because your goblins, spoiler, are really bad at combat, like as they should be. They're there to be bodies. Giving them +1 to wound doesn't actually move the needle very much on the damage they do, because they don't have any kind of special abilities base. So, like, sure, I guess if you've got 130 points, but he's probably a skip. Yeah, except for Trogs. Yeah, you're absolutely right, noobs. Trogs, it's very important for. Gabapalooza. Gabapalooza, interesting, because, Tom, Gabapalooza is not a hero.
It's true. And it is a wizard.
And it is a wizard, yes. So, in anything that can take Moon Clan, which is a lot of your leaders, right?
Yep.
For example, the aforementioned Scragrot can of course take them, or anything, but there are many things that could take Moon Clan.
Yep.
Gabapalooza can just fit in, and it's actually an interesting way to get a wizard without spending a hero slot, again, which I do think is actually pretty nice. Their ward will generally keep them alive in the beginning of it, and you actually have 3 little decent abilities here. In the +1 to run and charge, +1 to rend, or they can't use commands. Now you have to be like danger close on the Gabapalooza to use that third one, but the other 2 are fine, right? So, and it is a friendly Gloomspite Gitz unit, so it's quite broad in what it will allow you to add a rend to. And so I think I'm probably a buyer on Gabapalooza. It's 150 points for these little dorks, but I get a wizard out of it and then a good buff, and something that's very likely to survive the first couple turns.
How many models are there again?
5, is that right? Yeah, 5.
Yeah, which means that like it's 150 points. You said
150 points for effectively 15 wounds. Yeah, and you're getting
and 10 control.
Yeah. Like, I really think Gabapalooza is solid.
Yeah, I think that it's doing something really important for the army, is what I would say.
Yep. And I really like that rend on trolls, like, a lot. The Rabble Rouser is our other bonus hero. 120 points. He can set up in reserve and then do a really weird thing with monsters that I don't think is actually very good. It's fine. It's fine. He can give a big monster run and charge. I don't know who I'm giving it to.
Yeah. You could give it to your Ragnarok, although you don't like that. I don't know. I don't hate the Arachnarocks. They're expensive.
That's my problem. They're just like, maybe they're
Yeah.
okay. Like they have two foundational issues. We'll talk about it when we get to spiders. That pie plate base is still a giant problem, and it always will be, especially for a walking monster. Yes, I know they can move over terrain, blah blah. And uh and they're very expensive points wise. It's just a problem.
Mm-hmm.
The unit is Wizard 1 noobs, so the unit can cast one spell. Okay. I think he's a skip even at 120. Simple answer. So there you go.
Well,
Okay.
what I'll say is this: I like that he can pop up anywhere.
Sure. You can pop him out there and draw him closer to like it can give your herd run in charge or your loon boss or your mangler squig run in charge.
Yeah, but I mean, I like. So one of the things that this army doesn't have a lot of is just objective threat,
Sure.
like backfield objective threat, and like if he is in hiding, you can't just leave objectives.
Sure. I mean, he's not going to take anything from anyone. Okay. So
Well,
like
if they don't have
even
anybody
if
on
they
the
leave
objective.
very light stuff on there, they stand a good chance of winning the fight against this guy.
Well, I'm saying if they don't leave anything on the objective at all.
I understand. I know. Yeah, sure. He can threaten a backfield objective, which is value. You're not wrong. I understand it works on Squig Herd. I'm pretty sure Squig Herd is terrible now. I'm just gonna say that straight out, everybody. Sorry, but I think the Squig Herd is like legitimately awful. I cannot picture the army where I'm using Squig Herd, but we'll get there. Your Fungoid Cave Shaman. So obviously this guy's his own drop. He can take the Moon Clan Agitators. He can also take any Moon Clan. Perfectly good little wizard because once per battle he can become a wizard too, which is fine. And he's only 100 points. I like it. Like, honestly, if you're not taking Scragrot, you're probably taking this guy.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
Because he's can once a game be a wizard too, which is useful. So that's fine. And he's cheap as chips. It makes me
sad that none of them have bonuses, but I do like that they get the extra casts.
He's a good holder for the the +1 to cast thing, right? The artifact.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
Okay. The Squig boss with Nasha Squig. This guy is his own drop, but if you're gonna go like hard Squig, you're probably taking this guy. Now he has to be real close. Like he's not near as fast as the Squigs, but he can pick a Squig unit and then roll a die, and on a 2-up they either get +3 to move, or all the companion weapons gain crit mortal. All the or not companion, yeah, all the Squig bites.
I don't.
That's pretty strong. There's it does make a decent number of attacks. It will generally hit like feathers without crit mortal. So like in my mind, if you're using Squigs, you basically have to have this guy, and he spends the whole game just like running as fast as he can to keep any Squig unit in combat range of him, and that's his problem. Now he's only 110 points. He is his own drop, but I mean, that's pretty good. So it's not bad. Okay. Like, again, I think if there was ever going to be a defensive Squig Herd, it would be this guy behind the herd doing as much work as he possibly can.
Yeah. I agree with that.
I think that unit just dies to a charge, because no one's gonna just like let you get that off, but because they're actually pretty slow now. But conceptually, it's at least something. If you can like hold them back, keep him behind something, use them as a beta strike, I think that's like there are tactics that could work there. The loon boss on Mangler Squig. So,
poor guy.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what to think about this. What's your take on this guy?
Like, here's the deal. For me, the 2 strikes that have me not willing to consider it at almost any points is a 5-up save with
Yep.
only 1 red.
Sure.
I mean, this dude has one job.
Oh.
To get in and eat things, and I just don't see him doing that.
If his bite to moon was like a thing he could do every turn, I could see some justification for it as like almost a buff guy that you send in on the edge with everything else. You know, like my issue is it is a once per battle army thing. It's really limited. You're
only
absolutely
within 12
right.
inches.
What's that?
Only within 12 inches of him.
Yeah, sure.
Once per game, only units wholly within 12.
Yeah.
Like,
and it doesn't even really bonus him unless he's under a penalty to wound. Because he's already wounding on 2s with the huge fang-filled gobs. So yep. I mean, again, if you have a penalty to wound, cool, you get out of it. But other than that, it's
how are the balls and chains rend 0? They should be. I think there should be a 2 after that dash.
Well, yet there is not. And like his rampage is okay. It's fine. Like it's fine. It's 5 mortal wounds against a big unit. It's not bad. It's a perfectly fine rampage. He can only use it when he charges, so like he gets to do it once and then that's it, basically. Because yeah, he will die pretty fast. The regular Mangler Squig, so the non-hero. Oh, by the way, that guy's 260 points. That's my ultimately where it comes down.
Yeah, like, that's what I was going to ask is what's his
260 points. That is so many points for that dude. The regular Mangler Squigs are 1 for 220, and I actually don't hate this one. Okay. I don't hate him because I actually do quite like. He still is terrible as far as his attack profile goes. Like his rend is absent. His damage is the swingiest of swingy things, but like his rampage is really interesting in what it allows this model to do. This guy's on a 100 mil round. It's not that huge. 3d6 inches is pretty far.
I just don't know what he's doing.
Theoretically, your best case scenario is construed as he hits a line, he bounces over the top, and then attacks a soft, low armor hero in the back and kills them. Foot hero.
That's not happening. Like, not with these profiles.
I mean, like, it's a reasonable number of swingy attacks against a 5 wound 4 or 5 up save hero. He can absolutely get there. It's not going to like I don't even know it's the likely case, but it could happen.
Like of those huge fang-filled gobs, on average, 2 of those attacks are landing.
Sure, like yeah, but that could still be enough on it. That's my point. 4 attack, 2 wound. Let's call it they're 2 hit. Let's say they both wound. If the thing's on a 4-up save, it likely makes 1. You're rolling a d6. It's like you can kill a 5 wound hero if one of those resolves, right? I'm not saying it's a great strat. I'm saying I'm trying to construe the best case scenario for you with this.
I don't know. At 180, I'd still be hesitant with this guy.
That's a completely fair answer. I think 220 is way too expensive for what he is. And again, it's 14 health on a 5-up save with nothing else. Like this dude dies.
Again,
like,
yes, 5-up save. Let's repeat that. 5-up save.
Yep. Sneaky Snufflers. The Snufflers are interesting. So Sneaky Snufflers are 6 for 140. And they're like a pure little buff unit, right? Now they do have a ward of 5-up, which is fun. And they get to pick when they're not in combat, once per turn, they get to pick a Moon Clan unit. And if they're under Light of the Bad Moon, they get +1 to the roll. And on a 3-up, the target has a ward of 5-up. On a 6+, they also had one of the attacks characteristic of target's melee weapons. I legitimately couldn't care less about that last sentence, but I am very interested in that first sentence being on a 2-up. That's actually pretty strong on a body flood army.
Yeah, I mean, what I'll say is this about the second sentence. Like, with Under the Light of the Bad Moon, that's +1 attacks on a 5-up. And it's a buff that actually lasts until your next turn, rather than until the end of this turn. Yeah. That's significant because many of their buffs are until the end of this turn.
That's right.
So this is one of the actual buffs that persist until the start of your next turn, which is huge.
And a 5-up ward with that kind of persistence is actually really good. It means you're big horde of dorks is likely to survive on the double. Like, I do wonder if there is a sort of board flood army here, because these guys are pretty cheap. And we'll talk about it when we get down to the goblins themselves. But like the idea, like giving them all a 5-up ward does mean it will become much slower to lift these things. You know, you've played armies where you're relying on your 5-up ward basically exclusively, and you know in 4th edition it's just really hard to do that amount of damage, right?
Yeah.
So.
I wonder what are their points again? So I've been able to pull up.
You're fine. Sneaky Snufflers are 6 for 140, which isn't too bad.
No, it's not terrible.
That's a pretty, like, that's what I'd pay for a utility hero that did this. But instead of a utility hero, I'm getting 12 health worth of I'm getting a 12 wound utility hero. I only need one of these dorks alive to do the buff, right? So
12 wound, 6 control.
Yeah. Exactly. Snarlfang, one of my favorite units in the book. I think this unit is an A+. Snarlfang are 5 for 130. They have a bunch of attacks that are completely irrelevant. Who cares? They does nothing, like whatever. But if in the enemy movement phase they get to move D6 inches, can't go move into combat. They have a 12-inch base move. They're awesome first turn battle tactics getters. They're awesome, take enemy terrain, be on the sides of the board, all that kind of stuff. Yep. And so, like, they're wonderful. They're also great chaff in a pinch. Like, if you need a harder chaff line, 5 cavalry, line them up, turn them sideways a half-inch apart, bang, bang, good to go. So, like, I love Snarlfang Riders. I think they're fantastic.
Agreed.
Okay. Yep. I mean, this kind of light cav is just so good in this edition right now with the tactics on offer. The Loon Smasher Fanatics. What are these guys? That's not their name. What are these guys? What's these guys' names, Tom? The Loon Smashers. These guys, the dudes with the ball and chain, goblins.
Those Fanatics?
Fanatics, yeah, just whatever. They were something else. Okay, anyways, it doesn't matter.
No, historically they were Fanatics. They were Loon Smashers Fanatics, and now they're Spore Splatter Fanatics. So they're both Fanatics. It's just they've split based on the first word rather than the second word.
For sure. All right. Loon Smasher Fanatics. 1 health, 6-up save, whatever. Like, they're just there to die and do damage, right? Mm-hmm. These guys are 5 for 140, and they can hide amongst the mobs. So they can, like, put out... They can just be basically in your units, right?
Yep.
And
they're basically wherever you need them to be.
Yes. My issue with... They have strike first all the time, which is cool. D6 attacks each, 4s, 3s, Ren 2, damage D3. I mean, they hit like a truck, no doubt about it. Obviously, they instantly die if attacked by anything. Okay?
Yep. Like, you're not going to pop them out in front of shooting. Like, that's not happening.
Right. My problem is, I think the actual releasing of these guys, because the timing is any movement phase.
Yep.
Right? And I think that makes the timing of their release actually pretty complicated. Because... Go ahead.
If you're on their team, or like if you're on their
turn,
you're popping out at the bottom of their movement phase. At the same time, you would be redeploying, so that could be relevant. But you're going to pop out always before they're shooting if you're doing that.
Correct.
And if you're popping out to get their shooters, right? If you're popping out to try to like close a distance with a ranged unit, one of the challenging things about this is that when you pop out, they can respond by shooting the nearest unit, which will be the Fanatics.
Right. Yeah, their setup timing makes them less... Like, they hit so hard. I want to like them. My problem is, because they have to be set up 9 inches from enemy units when they set up, right?
Yeah.
That's... like, popping them on the side of the unit for a potential off-turn countercharge is rough, because then you're still on a 9-man countercharge. And if somebody moves up at 3 away or 5 away or something like that, you have to get, like, a huge redeploy to fit these guys in front of your line, right?
Yeah.
Like that outside of 9 inches from enemy units is actually a really huge restriction, and I think it's what kills these guys.
Yeah. I don't disagree with that.
Yeah. The spore splatters are interesting though. These are the ones with the little mushroom caps or whatever.
Right.
They're 5 for 120, so they're cheaper. Still the same made of paper. But in the deployment phase, they get a pre-game move. So they get to move forward 2d6 inches. Okay, so average 7 forward. Cool. Pretty good. Again, good for just like tactics or other things like that, or just closing off your lines or early objective control, all those kinds of stuff. And their Puff Shroom Frenzy, the add 1 to attacks characteristic of melee weapons used by other friendly Moon Clan units while they're wholly within 12 of this unit, is like, again, I don't care. Your units are terrible. Your Moon Clan units don't do anything as far as damage goes. But the second part, subtract 1 from the attacks characteristic of weapons used by enemy units while they are in combat with this unit, I actually quite like. That's a good penalty. Like, straight up, that's a great penalty.
It is. The problem with this unit is that it doesn't hide. And before it used to cut off line of sight. Like, it used to be a tactical tool to cut off line of sight to other units nearby. And the problem is that this is just like 5 wounds on a 6+ save.
Yeah.
Like, it's just going to get lifted. And so, it's not going to get, and it's not getting protected by Lookout Sir or the equivalents. And so, it's just going to get picked up. There's just no way around that.
I think there could be an interesting play here in the sort of board flood strat, okay? Where you're going for like a you charge me build, like you don't charge people, you just kind of move forward and sit on objectives. Yeah. Where you make a big unit of like 40 stabas or something, your honor guard, so they're sapping -1 attack. Sure. You have these guys kind of basically on the line on 3 inches, so anybody that engages with them is -2 attacks, right? Like if they attack the Moon Clans, they're -2 attacks.
Yep.
Right? And you give the big unit of Moon Clans like a 5-up save. Like, yes, they could try to kill these things, and then that's just like, then if they attack these things, they're not actually removing your objective control. So, like, who cares? You know what I'm saying? I think there could be very much a sort of alpha bunker strat with the Moon Clan side, using that combination of things. And, I mean, -2 attacks is huge. That'll sap a lot of units down to 1 attack. And like, you can also easily make them -1 to hit. Yada, yada, yada. So, you can definitely make it... I wouldn't call it a porcupine. It's not that. Because it's not going to kill anything back. But it definitely makes it so they just can't kill you. Right? You just have too many wounds, too many bodies, that kind of thing. Speaking of bodies... The Moon Clan shooters come in units of 20 for 160. They have terrible bow shots, but they exist. I guess if you want to do a couple points of damage around, you can do so. On average, they make 40 attacks. 20 of them hit. 6 of them wound. 6.3 of them wound. Yep. Or 6.6, sorry, of them wound. We'll call it 7. And then like half of those get through. So, it's worth 3 damage to a 4-up save unit. Yeah. Okay.
And you said it was 120 points for 20?
No, 160 for 20. I actually much prefer the stabas. Okay. So just your regular basic staba. Your stabas are 20 for 140. So it's quite cheap. You're getting, 20 wounds for 140 points. Very cheap. They still have the netters to give the 3-up -1 to hit. As I mentioned, you could easily give them the 5-up ward. You can like, I think honestly a unit of these as your honor guard might not be a terrible choice with the -1 attack defensive thing. You just move up and sit on the point and be like, come get me. Risk getting -1 to hit, -2 to attacks, and you're hitting a unit that at best, or like that quite likely has a 5-up ward. Right?
Yeah.
They're just not going to do that much damage to this unit.
No.
So I think that's the play here. And that there probably is a play there, though it's absolutely soul-crushing to actually play because you got to move around all these little dorks. Okay. Squig Herd. Tom, what do you think about Squig Herd?
It's not what it was.
Sure. Yeah. I mean,
Uh,
go ahead.
so it's 12 models
Yes,
for how much?
100 points, which is cheap.
It's
It's 12
12
wounds for
models,
100 points.
12 wounds for 100 points. So that could also be 24 wounds for 200.
Yep.
Fangfilled Gob is not a bad attack profile.
It's okay. It is a companion weapon though, so it's never getting bonus by anything except all out attack effectively.
Or all of the abilities that specifically
The other
target
things that
Fangfilled
specify
Gob.
it. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Which there have been a number of those.
Sure.
Like just a heads up, like so far. I think that I I love the Squigs Gone Wild way more than the old like fleeing ability.
I think it's a Garbo ability.
You're welcome to believe that.
Each
But
time a
it's
model
better.
in this unit is slain by a combat attack, and
Yep.
that model was in combat with the attacking unit.
Yep.
So if they bring in a power piece, they bring in a monster truck, okay,
Yep.
and
Yep.
smash your unit, which is what's going to happen here, right? They're going to come in on the corner. They're going to be in combat with like 4 squigs.
This
Okay.
unit isn't taking charges though.
Sure, it is.
No, this is a counter punching unit. This is not a frontline unit.
I
Your
hope
blocks
so.
of 40 your blocks of 40 gobos
Sure.
are taking your charges, and this is what
Yeah. Perfectly fine. And I get what you're saying there in that regard. I think if you're running an all squig army, I don't know what's like for if you're trying to run Squigalanche, I actually think they're much worse in that army than in the Moon Clan army you were just describing.
No, yeah, like, and actually, to be clear, I would consider running Squigalanche in a moon, like as like half the army being Moon Clan, but still use Squigalanche for all of my actual damage.
Yeah. I mean,
That's what I would consider, at least if I was doing it. I would be half bodies, half squigs.
yeah. And I think in a strat like that, there's probably something to these things. Obviously, the huge limitation is they are beasts, so their maximum control score is 1, right? You got 24 of these dorks, it's 1, right? Anything in the world touches them, it steals the objective. So they're terrible at holding any kind of board control, right?
Yeah, these aren't holding objectives. That's what I'm saying. These are counter charging.
I agree. Then that's what I'm saying. That's why I think they work worse in an all squig army, right? Which is what a lot of people used to how to run them, right? You'd have a couple packs of these. They would tend to be your objective sitters while your other dudes bounced away and went out and tried to get gold and kill units. And that just doesn't work, right? Like that strategy is completely failing here. Because in that case, what's going to happen is exactly the situation I described. They're going to come up, get tagged by something powerful, get lifted. You're going to get a roll 4 or 5 dice and get like 1 or 2 mortal wounds, and then the unit's dead, right? Because at most it's 24 health on a 6-up save, which means it is quite literally 24 wounds. Like basically everything in the game cuts through this, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So it's just that the question just becomes, can they do 24 damage, right? Or something close enough to that to effectively.
Yeah, I could very easily see like starting building your army with 120 goblins, 3 blocks of 40.
Sure.
Right, and then build the tools around those 120 for counterpunching.
Yeah, and I'll say the Squigger is very slow now, right? Like it's very slow and very unreliable. Like this is a D6 plus 3. That is slower than they used to be.
But it could be run and charge. Like with your dude that pops out, it could be run and charge.
It could be run and charge, yes.
And I do say what I do like about that guy is that he's run and charge anywhere on the board anytime you need it.
Sure. Like you don't pop him up until you have to have it that turn. Yeah.
Right. You pop him up when you need run and charge, and he pops up and gives it to that unit in the move phase. He pops in and hits him with it.
Yeah. Yeah, my problem, Brano, is they don't really throw back mortal wounds. It's actually really easy to neuter any kind of mortal wounds these guys throw back at you. Again, just like a unit of 5 cavalry, tag them on the side. They're in the combat range of 2 of them, and then they just attack and do a ton of damage to the unit and risk like a mortal wound.
Can I say it this way, Vince?
Sure.
This is 30 attacks for 200 points.
I understand. If they do something
on
like get the
fours and
crit mortal
threes.
or whatever, it's really
Yep.
strong.
Yep.
It is.
Yep. And so like, and if they're serving as counterpunch, your crit mortal guy can keep up with them
I
for during
agree.
that hero phase.
I agree. That's why I think
Um,
you're right in that like the build you're describing is actually the good use of them. Right?
I think it's the only use of them. I don't think the other ways work, to be
Yeah,
honest.
I think them as a behind your Moon Clan horde counterpunch unit, getting the crit mortals, that kind of thing. Like that's why I don't care as much about the rabble rouser because I'm not shooting them across the board as much, right?
Right.
Like
right.
these guys will get caught flat-footed even with run and charge by the tons of exceedingly fast cavalry that's just flooding the tables these days.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep. Yep.
Like what a hex rates move like 12 inches base, 14 inches base, something stupid, and they run all the time.
It's fine.
Yeah, like they're just everywhere. So and that thing's gonna they're gonna catch you and kill you, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. The Loon boss on Giant Cave Squig's 130 points. He picks Squig units and gives them +1 to hit. If he fights, okay.
Yeah, he's fine.
He's fine.
I mean, like let me say it this way: if you are, well, no, it's only Squig cavalry. It's not even
Correct.
the.
Yeah, he can't pull the
Squig
herd in. It's only the cap. Yeah.
Yeah. He's fine.
Yeah, Branu. The problem with that sequence you just charted out is that like it assumes a lot of things going right, and the problem is a slow moving, hard to control, fragile unit in this current edition is often a liability regardless of the damage it can do. Right?
Yeah.
That's the issue. So it can't be just it has the potential to do a lot of damage. You still have to use that piece extremely carefully because otherwise what's going to happen is you're going to move it forward, then you get countercharged, they blow it up on the side off turn, and they're done.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? Like the game plays radically differently. Just having like a blunt hammer that you can push forward is a lot less valuable. But you're right, they are very cheap, and that does help. I will grant you that one. Squig Hoppas. Nope. Just no. 10 for 170.
10 for 170. I mean, those 10 are bringing 30 Fang-filled gobs.
They do. They do, yeah.
And they're actually bringing 10 control rather than 1, and they're 20 wounds. So ironically, they might be more valuable or as valuable, arguably more valuable than the Squig Herd because they can actually move. They have a D6.
They're D6 plus 8, which is decent. Maybe you're right. They're definitely better than Boingrot Bounders. I'll say that.
Sure.
I'm fairly down on the Squigs in general. Because, again, we can only pass out that buff to so many places, right? Like, we can't assume every unit gets rid of
I agree.
I agree with that. I would love to see... I'd love to see this get rid of this, like, if you pass across, you get to do some stuff. But I hate this rule in the context of the thing. Like, especially with D6 plus 8 inches, it's so hard to actually pull that off with anything but, like, a solo hero standing out there. Yeah, I don't know, man. I don't know. They're very fragile. They're like okay speed, not bad. 11-inch average move isn't terrible. It's certainly not bad.
Again, I'm comparing them to Squig Herd for the points. Remember,
Sure.
Squig Herd was 24 wounds on a 6-up save, 1 control always for basically the same number of attacks.
Yeah, no, it's fair. It's fair.
The same number of Fang-filled gob attacks. This is actually getting all those rider attacks, which are worthless, but it's actually getting those, right? That's an additional 20 attacks.
Sure. Okay.
For less points. And so like I actually don't hate hoppers. Like just like I don't hate Squig Herd, I don't hate hoppers. I think both of them are okay for counterpunched units if they are buffed up.
Sure. Boingrot Bounders I really don't like very much at all. They're on a 5-up save. They're D6 plus 6. They're slower. They're very expensive. They're 5 for 120 as opposed to 10 for 170. So, like, this is a lot different here. You're talking about 10 of these guys for 240 points. I feel like the damage, like, yes, they have charge +1 damage on their little poking lances, but I really don't like these guys at all, and their impact hits are not like nothing. It's nothing.
Are nothing compared to what they used to be.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm way more hot on the hoppers than I am the um I'm way more hot on the hoppers than I am on any of the other ones. Yeah, it's interesting. Like just as an aside, the hopper's ability is an any movement phase ability.
Yeah. The boing boing.
So you probably won't be able to use it with a retreat, but you potentially could.
Yeah, on a long movement, you'd get it. You don't even know if it needs to be a long movement. I think you'd get it. Yeah,
Like
I think
if you're in combat and you retreat, well,
they
you
take
could
damage
even-
themselves on the way out, but it's not that big a deal.
Right. Like, let's say, because these are 10, right? Units of 10. So
Units of 10, yeah.
interestingly, you could run a unit of 20 of these for 340 as a really crazy counterpunch unit.
Maybe. I feel like that's probably over investing. Like, it feels like too many. But I
Maybe.
like 10. I do like 10 a lot. I think you've sold
I
me
like
on
10 as well. I like 10 as well. I was just realizing that like that's like 20 of these is 60 fang-filled gobs.
Sure.
And if you buff them up with the mortals, like that would lift quite a bit of things.
Sure. But I'll get that as a good counterpunch. Yeah, I'd grant that. 100%.
That's interesting.
Onto the troll part. Certainly the most like dumb but just obviously powerful part of the book. Like it just has the most direct path to victory, which is just it's truly the blunt instrument of this book, right?
Yeah.
You have Trug. You know, in general, this is your second way to get +1 rend, if you want, on your trolls.
Yep.
By getting the 3. He can also give out +1 attack, and it's kind of random, of course. You know, you're getting to roll 3 dice. You get to pick one you want as he gets beat up at whatever. You know, he is just like on a 4-up save unless you pick the 5-up ward, which you probably want to be buffing your dudes. Trug is 360. He can take a Dankhold Trog boss in his unit, and any Gloomspite gets, so he can't take anything. He has a really good regiment. But his rampage is fairly underwhelming. He does heal like a boss, but so does the other troll. I think in the end, that's just like a lot of points.
It is.
Okay.
For not that many tools, I don't think. I don't know.
I'm glad Windows just decided to randomly tell me about an update. That was a really fun thing that happened. Anyways. Thanks, Windows. Yeah, like I think I'll call Trug like a 5 out of
10.
A 5, 6 out of 10, something like that. Like I could see him. I don't think he's terrible. I think he's okay.
Yeah, he's fine.
All right, the Dankhold Trog boss himself has the 4-up spell ignore. If he's in combat, he gets to use his rampage, which is one of the attacks characteristic of Troggoth units as well that are next to him. It's like literally next to him, but still it's good. It affects him as well. And
it's every combat phase.
Yep, it's every combat phase. He doesn't have to like charge or anything to turn it on. Any rampage that says like if you charged this turn or whatever, I'm less hot on because you know, it's especially with a slow army, it's easy to get flat-footed and never charge. But he gets to do this anyways, which I like.
Yep.
His start of any turn, so he's healing D6 in both players' turns, which is just crazy healing. He can be set at +1 to save under the moon. He can heal another D3 whenever he fights if you're in the Trog defense. So in any given round, this thing heals D6 plus D3.
Yeah. Yeah, it's good.
Like,
I wonder...
Quite strong.
I wonder if there might be something with the... what's the guy's name? I was trying to scroll back through that had the... could give monsters run and charge.
The rabble rouser, is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, maybe the rabble rouser.
He's the one who gives the
Because
monsters run in charge. Yeah,
he could give this guy run in charge.
he can.
Like that's not terrible. To have that on command once per game.
Sure. I think that's fine. I think your trolls can also be a counterpunch unit, by the way. I think there is a notable, like, they're much more likely to survive. That's one of the tricks, right? If you get in a bad situation, these guys are much more likely to survive. The problem is you potentially overpay against things like Nighthaunt, right? Because you got a bunch of Rend and stuff like that just is irrelevant.
Right. Right.
Dankhold himself is 220, and he can have any Trog, any Troggoths in his regiment, which is fine. The regular Dankhold Troggoth, just the guy, is 180 points. Still has the magic resistance. Doesn't heal quite as much, but can still heal plenty. And has a really interesting rampage actually that allows him to just kind of move around in combat. In ways that like it could charge, be in combat with 2 units to shut off their to shut off their ability to countercharge, and then walk away from them, and then basically strand that unit because it's not a pile-in. So it's like a really powerful cheat ability in his rampage, right?
Yeah.
The fact that he can just like charge over here in between the line, lock a bunch of people in combat, and then just use his rampage to be like, nope, not fighting them. But now they've missed their countercharge window is actually pretty strong.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't hate that.
Yeah.
And that those mortals, by the way, are each unit within 1 inch of this unit.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
You could charge and then drift over into a pocket and hit multiples with those mortals.
Yep, absolutely. The Fellwater Troggoths are your vomity guys, still with a short range attack, but do have an extremely powerful kicker on that passive. That just, I mean, obviously, if you're going for the all troll army, there's going to be probably 2 units of these dudes in there.
And they're a great counterpunch unit too.
Fellwater Troggoths are 3 for 180, right? Perfectly reasonable. 15 health for that. 15 health and for 180 on a 5-up. That's it. But they can hit people with the vomit and make it so they're -1 to save and can't benefit from positive modifiers,
which is amazing.
Right? That's like really strong when the rest of your trolls hit.
And if I'm honest, like I know that you said where you could be overpaying for trolls against Nighthaunt.
Sure.
If you're pairing trolls as your counterpunch unit with 120 bodies.
Yeah.
Then you're just gonna have weight of dice, right?
Absolutely. Like that's where your goblins actually do work. Yeah, agreed.
Yeah.
Rock Gut are still 4-up, 5-up. They're your tougher trolls. Still perfectly fine as far as attacks go. They just, at 2 attacks each, they're really not doing much. They're just basically a big giant rock literally sitting in the middle of the board that your opponent tries to punch its way through.
So let me just say, as much as I hate their profile of 5s and 2s on throwing boulders,
but shooting attack,
I love that it's not like they've moved away from what it was.
Yeah.
Like that weird roll of
stupid mortal thing that was very hard to understand. Yeah.
Nope. You can just pop 6 of these, or you move 6 of these up, 6 attacks.
I mean, I will say even 3 packs of these are very hard for your opponent to kill unless they're hitting it with their hammer unit, right?
Yep.
And so like there's ways to get them up to like 3 attacks, or to bonus their attacks, or to give them more rend. Like I will say, there's lots of ways you can give trolls rend, and these guys, or frankly, like these guys going to rend 4, or the Fellwater is going to rend 3, stuff like that. If you happen to be running Trug, like that's no joke, right? They will do a ton of work at killing things at rend 3 or 4. And they're relatively tough enough and healy enough that they can take most hits, and then
you said these were 3 for what?
These are 3 for 170, which is fine.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. I mean, they're probably your best. They're probably your best anvil, because instead of the 40 wounds of spears on 5s and no ward, these guys are, instead of 40 wounds, these guys are 30 wounds on a 4-up, possibly 3-up with the moon, 5-up ward.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I honestly think you could do a mix of both, and obviously the math changes a lot if the goblins also have the 5-up ward.
Yep.
But yes, I think these guys are an incredible anvil. Like I think we saw a couple all troll armies over the weekend, and they did relatively decently. It's the challenges are exactly what you think it is. It's board control. It's movement based, or their limitations. Right. It's very hard to lift in this stuff, but they're very hard to get out there and get the board control. So.
Yep.
Spider Riders, the whole spider part of the army. It's 5 for 110, and like I'm sorry, these guys aren't any good.
I've wanted them to be good for so long, and we've just never gotten there.
Like I get it that crit mortal on the companion weapon is something. Okay.
Yeah. It's 10 attacks. Mortaling on 5s or 4s or 6s normally, sometimes 5s.
Yeah. Here's what I'll say. I like these guys perfectly fine as the side of the board go run and take your tactics thing, because again, there's like 10 wounds in the unit, they move wolves? 10. Yeah, they're 110 points. They're cheaper than wolves. That's the trick. That's why I'm fine. Like, as long as you can clear, if you have a 10-inch move or better, then you're a perfectly acceptable unit to play that role, right? Yeah. They don't have the off-turn move, which I think does a lot of work for the Wolf Riders, but they can also walk over terrain, which is useful. Like that is a useful thing, especially because some of the boards will have that kind of terrain near the sides and stuff like that. It becomes very easy to take their land and do those kinds of things. The fact that they're move 10 is like the strength for it, right?
Yeah.
They'll die if anything looks at them even slightly funny, but they do have the potential to do a little bit of damage because of the crit mortal thing. Not a ton, but it's there. Like if you figure let's take the sort of pie in the sky best case scenario. You take these things in units of 10, right?
Yep.
Okay. That means you're making 20 attacks with your spider fangs. Let's just assume you get them all in, right? Okay.
Yeah.
You're going to get 3 to 4 mortals out of crit mortals, right? And then basically 1 or 2 other potential damage. Right.
Yeah, it's just not worth it.
It's not your good return. Like if you want to get the crit mortals thing, you take the other guy and you put it on to the units.
You know how you fix these? You give them crit mortal down the line. That's how you fix these.
Sure.
But nobody wants that.
Sure.
Right? Like they do have long shot spider bows now, so that would be problematic to give, them.
They're not getting crit mortal because nothing gets crit mortal at range. But
that's what I'm saying. Like that's how that's how you would fix something like this, is to actually make them a threat in mass, but they're just not.
I would be fine if they had the Skaven treatment where like it's crit auto wound.
Yeah.
Because on a 4-up, 5-up, that's actually really meaningful and impactful when you're crit auto wound.
No, it's true. It's true.
The web spinner shaman, he can Spider-Man around the board, which is very funny. Like that's just like the funniest ability. And he has a spell that allows spider units to run and shoot or charge. Okay.
And or charge.
Makes them very fast.
Yeah. Yeah, so, I agree with that.
He's 140 points on foot for your little foot dude. Again, he dies if anything looks at him cross-eyed, but, whatever.
Yeah.
He's fine. If you want to run the spider thing, it's fine. The Arachnarok spider with War Party is bad. It's 280 points. That is way too many points for something that does the equivalent of 0 damage. I understand it has monstrous spider fangs, 4 attacks with crit mortal on a 3 damage attack. That's cool. That means that every so often you will just get 3 damage out of him, which is nice, because beyond that he basically does 0 damage.
Yeah, but this is not a 280 point unit. Like getting a couple mortals is not what you should be getting out of 280 points.
No, it is not.
That's like a reinforced unit of Dreadside Heritance.
The web spinner shaman, so your actual hero on Arachnarok. This guy's I don't hate this guy because he gives the +1 to casting rolls, which is cool. That's actually a really good buff, as he always has. His rampage is really nice. It's only for infantry heroes, which is very limited, but it is still strike last, which is nice. But he's 320 points. Like, no way. No way. And his regiment is only Spiderfang. So his, like, bad units go in his regiment.
So could you do... no, never mind.
Yeah,
Say, just... like... Yeah, like, the question was, could you do something like the -1 to hit item on him?
Sure, I think you have to. If you're going to take something like this, you basically have to. Otherwise, he just dies.
And you... and then you treat him like an anti-infantry piece, even though he doesn't have anti-infantry, to slow down or to last strike last an enemy. Like, well, it's only
heroes. Yeah, that's what I'm saying, man. It's not good.
Yeah.
This guy's 320 points. Never. Okay. Like, there's no world given what we've seen here. Okay.
Yeah.
The Skitterstrand of Ragnarok, we featured him earlier. Obviously, we talked about him a little bit earlier. His special thing is obviously going into reserve and then coming out 9 inches away. He can fly. His rampage is only on charge. It doesn't do anything that impressive. He can move around things, which is fine. He can move, like, literally around people. Okay.
Yeah.
Because he can only move through infantry units, right? So he can't pass over cav or beasts or monsters or anything like that with his move. It's only 2d6, and the Skitterstrand is 250 points.
Yeah, like, what I'll say is this: like, in the Ragnarok build, you can deep strike another unit with you. So, like, you could bring the hero into the backfield, or you could bring a unit of 10 riders into the backfield.
I mean, maybe. It's so big. This base is so stupidly big.
I know. I've set it up many times.
Yeah, and setting it up like 9 inches away in the backfield, quote unquote, is like, okay, how did they deploy?
All that to say is that...
Have they never played Warhammer before, ever? Is this their first game?
The point being, again, and that's a case certainly for doing 10 riders, right? Because you can fit 10 riders near him in the backfield more likely than a second large base.
Sure.
But yes, it is unfortunate that, again, the Spider Riders were 4 editions in. They haven't been able to do anything useful.
I mean, I think we just need to cut this appendix out. I'm sorry.
Right. Like, it makes me wonder why we're still trying to hold on to these kits. Like, I expected them to go in this edition, or in this round, because we have our goblins on foot, we have squigs, and we have trolls.
Right.
Like, that seems to be the three legs. I don't think we need the spiders anymore for what this is.
Yeah.
My vote is that they cut this out, and if they want to keep the Ragnarok kit, they launch it into a new, like, army.
Just put it back in the old world or something. It was fine.
Well, I mean, it is in the old world, but yeah.
Sure. Yeah, the Ragnarok Spider with Flinger is like the hardest pass I've ever done in my life.
Yeah.
I couldn't pass it. I couldn't pass it fast enough. 290 points. Give me a break. Okay, next. Your endless spells. Scuttle-Tide.
I mean, it half moves on a shoot, on a 2+.
Cool story.
I mean, I don't mind.
I'm not. Am I paying 290 poin's for that?
Making Archeon
because it ain't doing any damage.
Keep Marathi's big beast out of combat for another half round or another round.
Maybe, possibly. Sure. I mean, there are endless spells that do that, right?
I know.
And I don't pay any 290 points for them, or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's Tom hitting his mic, Willard. It's Tom being bad at his mic presence.
I'm alt-tabbing. Sorry, jumping between the various windows, looking at.
Yes. It's when you run your hand across your mic.
Yeah.
At any rate, The Scuttle Tide is what? Okay, it's fine. It makes some crit mortal attacks. It's fine.
Yeah, it's fine.
Mork's Mighty Mushroom. It doesn't have a move, so you can set it up right next to people, and
Which
in the
is
shooting,
nice.
which is nice. And it can do some decent mortal damage. Like, this is not a bad endless spell. The Mighty Mushroom is
No.
actually pretty good. By the way, its range. Let's jump back up here real fast, just so we talk about ranges. The Mighty Mushroom is 12 inches, so you have to be pretty close to get it off, but it's still a decent attack. The Moon is 12 inches, the Scuttle Tide is 12 inches, and the Cauldron is 12 inches of caster and 9 inches of enemy units. So,
yeah.
Yeah, the Mushroom's cool because it doesn't, it can be set up right next to people and then do something that turn.
Yeah.
So
It's a great anti-horde tool, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. The Malevolent Moon.
You know what army it would be pretty good against?
What's that?
Nighthaunt.
Sure. I agree. I actually agree completely. The Malevolent Moon is kind of fun, actually. I don't hate the Malevolent Moon. Its attack is completely pointless. But it's really fast, and you can just kind of, and it literally is just the moon floating around. It makes it so you're under the light of the bad moon, right?
Which is amazing for, you know what this reads? +1 to save for trolls.
For trolls. Exactly. Yeah, it's just really great to like set up behind your line and have it follow you around. Like, it's easily fast enough to always be able to follow around whatever units you want, which is cool.
Yeah.
And then the Arachna Cauldron. The Arachna Cauldron, if it's it lets you get a power level, which is again pretty useful. Their manifestations are like, okay, they're fine. They're not bad. Nothing's blowing the doors off here, but they're fine for the most part, except for the.
Well, there's 4 of them. Let's start there. Like, that's more than many lures. And like 2 of them are what I would consider like situationally useful or fairly useful. One of them I would consider 2 of them are good. One of them I would consider situationally useful.
Yeah, I think it's a perfectly fine manifestation lore.
Yeah, I mean, the Blessings of the Cauldron pushes the named hero to 3 casts.
Yeah.
So
yeah. And then your Loon Shrine. Again, it's another bad moon force multiplier, and that it broadcasts. And it, like, much like Nullholes, it can recall your non-hero, non-monster, non-war machine Gloomspite Gitz unit that has been destroyed, which is fine. Again, it's yet another reason why trolls and big hordes of goblins and stuff are fine, because you can refund half.
What war machines do they have?
I don't know. None, I think. I think 0. But you never know what's coming in the future, I guess, is the point.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right, that's Gobos. Overall, I think they'll be fine. I don't think they're very strong, but they're fine.
Yeah, like, I think fine is a great description.
Okay, you know what that means? Fine. It's time for the Ogre Maw Tribes. All right, rolling into Ogres. Your battle traits are underwhelming, to say the least. Much discussion has been had about this. 2 to run rolls is funny, but you will end up using the Feast on Flesh eventually, more or less, because you want to get the objective cap out of your glutton packs and so on. Mm-hmm. And you do some impact hits, and that's fine. Okay. Your battle formations, you have Master Butchers, which is just +1 to cast for all your wizards, which is good. You have your Brutal Stock, which is if you do damage, then you do 1 more. Which, if you're going to go this route, you need to combine it with one of the guys we're going to talk about later, so that you can't fail the roll, basically.
Yeah.
But it's okay. It's fine. It moves you from 2 or 3 to 3 or 4, as far as mortal damage goes, which isn't bad. Your Eyes of the Storm is like a mixed infantry, or sort of a mixed thing that I think is honestly pretty completely worthless. And the Feed Your Cannons is worthless because Lead Belchers and Iron Blasters are bad. So there you go.
Womp, womp, womp.
Mm-hmm. Your heroic traits. the Great Gut Lord is actually not bad. The negative modifiers is unit's control score and to hit and wound rolls. I actually like quite a bit. There's a lot of things that want to penalize all three of those things.
Yeah.
So that's actually pretty great on like a flosh, right? The Frost Art on Stonehorn flosh. The Booming Roar is fine. There's a lot of it. There's a lot of armies that are going to rely very heavily on infantry, and -5 to all the control scores is really powerful. But it's a silver bullet. This is the kind of thing that makes me wish or makes me respect like the Nashcon two list format. I think in a situation like that, you've got like a Gut Lord and you've got a Booming Roar guy, and if you could line up against like an all infantry army, that's just a super ace in the hole. That control swing is crazy.
Yeah.
Especially since you're already a high control army. But then obviously touched by the Everwinter, it makes you a priest. Okay, cool. Why'd we talk about the other ones? So great.
Yeah.
The artifacts, I think most people will just default to gruesome trophies because it's all the time, right?
Yep.
Although I don't know how many heroes or monsters you will actually end up fighting. Most heroes in this edition don't want to fight. They want to be 3 little utility heroes hiding behind the line. And monsters, I think, are generally uninteresting writ large across the edition and will not be present. I think they've got to get in line now behind big blocks of infantry and blocks of cav, both of whom are generally more appealing and more useful. So, if you're going to take one of the once per battle ones, again, the Fang of Gur is like a silver bullet thing that in a 2-list format would shine. Otherwise, I do like the Elixir of the Frostworm. It's a huge swing in any shooting phase when the enemy thinks they're going to finish you off, and then suddenly they lose, they take 3 or 4 mortals and you heal 3 or 4. That's not nothing. Yes, it'll sometimes be a 1 and do nothing.
Yep.
Okay. Sometimes it'll be a 6. Your spell lore. Your spell lore is really good. It's really good. Your unlimited spell is 5, 6, 7. Great casting spread. Your unlimited spell is amazing. Heal D3 and add 3 to the target's control score. Wonderful. Your Greasy Deluge on a 6 is an 18-inch range, -1 to hit. Great. Good penalty. And your Blood Feast is on a 7, and it's +1 to attacks. Okay. It has to be Ogre Infantry, by the way, on that last one. But sure, okay.
I'll take it.
Fantastic. Your Prayer Lore, your unlimited one is questionable at best, I suppose. I don't know how many priests you have, which you really need to be like praying off turn and doing a bunch of stuff to build up the points to like get the actual 5-up ward. It's a lot of work. Stone skeleton with a lot more steps. That's just time walk with additional steps. But this is a lot of steps.
It's basically a time walk.
Okay, so Pulverizing Hailstorm is fine. It's like fine for a little mortal damage pop thing. But really it's all about Keening Gale, which is on a 4/8, and it's run and charge, and if you pop the big one, it's reroll, run and reroll charge, which is really, really good.
Fantastic.
That's the reason you're taking the priest, is to use Keening Gale, because it's amazing and lets you do what you want to do. By the way, this one is only monsters or Mournfang packs in the same way the other one was only infantry. So just as a clarification, talked about Kragnos already. I do think he can have more use in this army than some of the others, but he is very expensive. But that's okay because a lot of your other stuff is actually surprisingly cheap.
It's affordable, not cheap.
Yeah, okay. I like that. That's good. I'll take that.
I mean, what I would say is that it allows you to fit some. It allows you to honestly just fit more meat into this army, it feels like that's what this army wants to do.
100%. Priests are only the big boys, right? No, remember, you can take the heroic trait Willard to make anybody a priest, which is likely what you're going to do anyways. I mean, you might end up just making your Phalash a priest, which is probably the most common usage, but, there's options. The Tyrant, other than having the advantage of being able to take any Ogre Maw tribes, which can only be done by the Flosh, the Kragnos and this guy is
Yeah.
terrible. He's 180 points for an 8 health 4 up save guy with basically no good abilities to speak of.
Well, I like this army. Let me say it this way: this army plays with control a lot,
Yeah, sure.
and this guy just continues to push that. Like, I think that there could be I think this army will win based on control. Let me just say that.
I agree completely. I just think when you've got a spell that's doing the same thing and it's unlimited, I'm not wasting the points on this dude. Yes, they could be stacked. Yes, I could get +6. I understand all that. But I probably don't need that much crazy control. Like, we're going to gild the lily at some point here.
Sure, sure.
Slaughtermaster, incredible. Incredible in either build of this army. One of the worst figs in the history of GW. It is truly awful. But he's incredible. He's just incredible. The Slaughtermaster's 130 points. He can take any Gutbusters in his regiment. He will be a commonly chosen hero. When friendly Ogre Maw tribes kill something within 18 inches, a big bubble, and very likely he gets a Grizzly Remain points. And then in any hero phase, you can burn one or more of those points to either give +1 attack to a unit, to a friendly Gutbusters unit, +1 attack, or a 5-up ward. Incredible.
Yeah, it's great.
So, like, just amazing. Like, just amazing. Like, giving your big unit of Gluttons a 5-up ward on top of their incredible control and their incredible pile of Meat Mountain is just really, really good. Just really, really, really good. And being able to flip over to also be +1 attack. If you get 2 points, why not also let him just absolutely explode on everything, too? Because that's the second source of +1 attacks we can give him.
Yep.
Butcher, also incredible. He will be another thing people will just take. He's 140. He can take the Gorger Maw Pack, which is interesting. We need to remember that for later. As well as Gutbusters. And while they're wholly within 12 of this unit, friendly Gutbusters units can charge even if they ran.
Love it.
Fantastic. And it's, in the charge phase when it triggers, so you can, like, move them, move him, bring them in range. Even if you ran, boom, you're off to the races. There you go.
Do you think that there's a build here with him and Kragnos?
Maybe. I think Kragnos is like, you honestly don't need him. I think like just the Gutathon is probably, or the Gluttonathon is probably just the way to go, but potentially. I don't know for sure, but potentially.
Like, it would just be so much meat across the table so quickly and just bury people literally in their flesh.
Yep. Yes, that is correct, Germ. A lot of people are doing 2 Slaughtermasters because they both get a point. Yes, if a unit's killed within 18 inches and there are 2 Slaughtermasters in range, they both get their points. Yeah, I agree completely, everybody who said that. I mean, like, the Slaughtermaster's just incredible. He's just incredible. Yeah. He and the Butcher are the 2 biggest glow-ups I've seen forever. Mm-hmm. They're amazing in a gut-centered army.
And they're wizards.
Yeah, and they're wizards. They're both wizards. Skip. We're not talking about the Blood-Pelt Hunter. He's bad.
Poor Hunter.
Ogre Gluttons. They're really good. Like, they're really good. I don't know what else to say. You get 6 of them for 220. Right? So that's 24 health on a 5-up save. With a Slaughtermaster, they could have a 5-up ward. Once you use your Feast on Flesh, these guys go to Objective Control 3. They're worth 18. In a unit of 12, they are the most health you can have in a single unit in the game at 48 health.
Yep. How much is it? How much would that be for 12 of these?
440.
That's a lot of points.
It is, but I've ran this army. I did run a gut. I tested out the Ogres with a glut heavy army because I have a bunch of Gluttons, and I mean, does what it says on the tin. Is my response, right? Now, you can also push their attacks way up. They are 2 damage base. They do have a built-in rend. Yes, they hit on 4s, so like things that heavily penalize hits will like really affect this unit's output a lot. There's a lot of neg 1 to hit in the game. It's pretty easy for a lot of armies to put neg 2 to hit on you. So once you're laboring under 5s and 2s, you very much notice you ain't doing no damage. Okay.
Yeah.
But their control is still incredible, and it's just like, it is just the most wounds in a single unit by raw count. Right?
Yep.
That's it.
And then get a 5-up ward.
And then get a 5-up ward, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, units of 6, correct. I mean, they're really, really strong. I don't know what else to say. Gluttons are really good. Iron Guts are not. You overpay for the Rend. You get 4 of them for 240, so it's 16 health. Yeah. And they're still only on a 5-up save, which is what sucks.
Yeah. If their save was higher, I might consider them, but
sure.
Oof.
I mean, they are very strong in that damage 3 Rend 2. Some armies they will just do nothing against, like a terrible pick into Nighthaunt, the current king.
Yep.
But the fact that they can do the 2 fights things, like having 4 of them, arguably, to just like be a little unit on the backside is not a terrible idea to fight twice to clean things up. But like ultimately, depending on how you math it, Guts end up doing the same damage. It really it heavily depends on the save profile of what you're attacking, but into sort of average, it's like you just end up being better to take more Gluttons. Okay, Man-Eaters, nope. Gorger Mawpacks are, I mean, quite strong. You with the Gorger Mawpack, you get 5 of them for 260, and it can't be reinforced. But they can only pop in from the edge, but it's 9 inches from the edge and 9 from enemy units. And again, these guys are really, really damaging, right? They're 5 attacks, 4s and 2s, Rend 2 against infantry, Rend 1 otherwise, damage 2. I'm not sure that you don't just take more Gluttons, but I could absolutely see the argument for these guys, like as a single unit of these dudes, in your Butcher's Regiment. I think they're pretty strong because of like having the unit that can pop out. Like with a 9 inches, it's often the case on most maps that they will be able to pop out and take their land. They'll hold their terrain piece, okay?
Yep.
And then they'll be in place the next round for a flank play.
Take the flanks,
Yeah. Your other unit that's going to do that, we're going to talk about here in a minute. It's obviously that's one thing, but they are like expensive at 260 points. It's not cheap, right?
They are a unit of these guys.
Yeah, I mean you're effectively getting 25 health for 260 points. They're not as good of a return as straight Gluttons, but they can, in certain circumstances, do as much or more work without as much support.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
I like them a lot. I think they're like fine. I think if you had 1 unit of them in your army, you would not be choosing wrongly. Lead Belchers are bad. Iron Blasters are okay in the best case scenario. That's the Scrap Launcher is probably your best shooter, and that isn't words that should ever come out of my mouth. But they give people -1 to hit. So
I don't hate that.
Yep. I don't care about their crit auto wound. I don't care about their
anti-infantry.
Yeah, exactly. The fact that they just the fact that they need to kill 1 model and then they give it -1 to hit, which admittedly is not always going to be a thing they do. Even at 180 points, I'm not taking this thing, but it's probably the sort of best option.
So I will say that they are auto wounding on 5+s if you also have an Oblar unit.
Cool.
So those 3d6 shots are auto wounding on 5s, which is not nothing, is what I would say. I agree that it is the best shooting unit you have for whatever that's worth.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, like again, I don't think it's terrible. I think it's fine. I think just saying 180 is probably high for what you're getting out of it, right? Because you're getting like probably literally 1 or 2 damage and a -1 to hit.
Yep.
It's not actually killing anything, so that's fine. Regular Noblars. I mean, regular Noblars are what they are. I'm not gonna say they're bad because they're not. You get 20 of them for 120 points. That's wild. It's 20 health. Like if you're just looking for dumb chaff to gum up the works and make it so other things can countercharge.
Yep.
Congratulations, you found your little dorks, right? I mean, they are what they are. In a world without battle shock, they are quite valuable at the insane amount of wound jabs here for 120 points. The Frostlord on Stonehorn is much diminished over what he was. I think this new Stone Skeleton is still quite good. But like, it will do a lot of damage over the course of the game. He can still float over units, but only 2d6 inches, not 3d6, and that is a very material change to your chance to like actually get around a unit or get where you want to go.
Yep.
Damage wise, he's fine. Like obviously he has multiple charge +1 damages. You want to be filling out your ABCs. I believe 120 for 20 wounds is the cheapest rate in the game, Peppo. Yeah, I believe so. You know, and the cool thing about the Flosh is he's 360. I actually do think he's worth 360. Like, this was obviously a significant decrease from previous edition, and I think that's probably about the right points for him. So, he still can be fairly fragile, even with his new stone skeleton. Getting the 5-up ward is really hard, but he has some cool tricks. The drift is still there. So yeah, it's fine. He can also take anything in his regiment, which is valuable.
Yeah.
So, the Frostlord on Thundertusk is really useful only insofar as his rampage. Well, it's not even really a rampage. His bellowing voice. Okay. Because each target can add 1 to the D3 roll it made if you use Trampling Charge, it makes it so they can't fail to do impact hits. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it's on a 2+.
Yeah, so like now since it's on a 2+ on a D3, now the minimum you can roll is a 2, effectively, right?
Yeah, and when you fire this ability off, this is before you're rolling your charges.
Yeah, correct.
So you don't have to worry about charging out of range, which is the type of problem that often you have with these type of buffing units.
So if you're trying to really juice the charged mortals, which I do think in this current edition is actually a viable strat, the kind of like just collapse in on things and then stand in a line and dare your enemy to come get you, right? You know, that's not the worst strat. He also has a Horde Sweeper rampage, which is decent enough. All right.
It's worth noting that is in any movement phase.
Yeah, which is like both a bad timing and a good timing, because like if you think about that means you had to like get in there, fight the Horde, live through the crackback, and then when you roll to the next movement phase is when you get to do it. Which
well, and you're incentivizing them actually to retreat. So you're incentivizing them to retreat, which could allow you to charge.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, again, there are plenty of things that have retreat and charge, so aren't going to care. They're just going to walk out of combat and then like come back later.
Recharge. Yeah.
But you know, it's a interestingly timed ability in what it does. I like the Frostlord on Thundertusk. I think it has a purpose now. I think it's Colossal Tusks are really funny at 5 damage. There are like I fought against this army, so again I played against a monster truck army, and there were combats where this thing, you know, my opponent had one of these, and there were absolutely combats where this thing did no damage, 0 basically, equivalent of, right? And then there was like 1 or 2 combats where this thing just wrecked face, right? So
yeah,
it is the definition of swingy experience. So low number of attacks, high damage kind of thing. I should state that. Okay, yeah. So Huskards, your priests. Your Huskard on Stonehorn is 300 even. It's interesting in what it does with your monsters and their monsters, I suppose. Actual damage-wise, this thing doesn't really do that much in the way of damage. Although like, it's fine. It doesn't have the big hit from the Frostlord, and that actually does make a material difference. But the Rampage is interesting because it gets to do it to all friendly and enemy monsters. So again, if you're going to like try to walk up, hit, kill, and then stand and be like, come get some, it very much makes it so they don't like want to bring monsters into your monsters. Because you get all your companions, all your people get crit 2 hits. And all of the enemy companion rules get -1 to hit. So kind of a
great.
So
it's a nice swing.
Mm-hmm. It's fine for the points.
Mm-hmm.
And being a priest. And then the Huskard on Thunder Tusk, you're taking it solely for the hope at getting them caught in Strike Last. It can only do it to infantry. It's the cheapest one. It's 270, rightly so. It does the absolute least amount of work. But it is still a priest. I think I'd rather take the Stonehorn one, honestly. There's just too many times where you're like, you know. The regular Stonehorn Beast Riders are 290. They have Stone Skeleton, and their Rampage is not very good at all. Their Rampage is like legit bad because it is a pile-in move still, so it can't pull them out of combat like we talked about earlier.
Yeah.
And it doesn't do any damage. It just like lets them slightly.
It rotates them basically. Yeah. A D6.
Yeah. I think that would be no, I don't think so. Zach is my honest answer. Like armies against Nobblers die so easy. They're armies that actually could pick up all those wounds. Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure what to say about Stonehorn Beast Riders other than they're fine for what they are if you like monster trucks, but they're still a very, very swingy unit in as far as the damage they do. The Thunder Tusk Beast Riders have a big control score swing. That's basically the only thing about them. They are 240, and I'm not sure that control score swing is actually doing enough work. I think they would be a skip for me. Icebrow Hunter is a skip. Frost Sabers. What's up, Frost Sabers? What's up, my favorite unit in the army? Yeah, I mean, Frost Sabers are 2 for 70 points. They do exactly what they're supposed to do. They set up on the edge of the board. They lock off like deep strikes and other things like you were talking about earlier. And then they run up the side of the board and score you battle tactics. Because they have a 9-inch base move, so if they run at all, even if they roll a 1, they still clear the DMZ, get into the other side, and do the flank battle tactic. And if somebody decides to use any amount of resources to go over to the side of the board and kill these, it's an absolute win. Any amount of points they dedicate to killing these things is the worst choice they've made all day.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. The Mournfang pack. Mournfang are actually pretty interesting to me. So you get 2 for 200, which is expensive. But it's -1 to wound any of your Beastclaw Raider units in that combat range. So like including themselves, obviously, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
But they also make it so you're like shooting your monster trucks is -1 to wound, which again is a sizable penalty. It's hard to get out from underneath of. And the fact that the charged +1 damage weapon ability has no effects on them is notable. And they make a bunch of pretty good attacks, like 7 attacks on Force 2s, Rend 1, damage 2, and then the Rider is +1 Rend against infantry. So
yeah, I don't hate that.
They're a little expensive for what they're doing, I think, vis-a-vis the rest of the army, and the sort of health to cost ratio. Certainly, they're expensive versus the like the glutton type of stuff, calculation. But they have some neat abilities.
And they have the 9-inch move.
They do.
Like, so they can, in a pinch, get into that territory as they need.
Absolutely. Yep. Nope. And then the Mallpot.
Well, I will say this. They are also one of the most armored units outside of the monster trucks.
Oh, sure. Being on a 4-up. You're talking about the
yeah.
The Mournfang? Yeah, sure. The Mallpot, it's full or empty. If you're slain within 6 inches, it becomes full, yada yada. You get to pick one enemy, you get to pick an Ogre Wizard 1 every turn and get +1 to your power level, which is fine. Like, that's cool. It has to be within 3 inches, but it can do it. And then when it's full, you can dump it to heal D3 each friendly unit wholly within 18 inches. So, okay. There you go.
What do you think about the gaping, toothy maw pit.
Oh, yeah. You're talking about the maw pit.
Yeah.
First of all, can we talk about Throat of Gur? I mean, okay.
It's the goat.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. It's fine. It's fine.
Like, what I'll say is this: I don't hate it. Obviously, it's going to die pretty easily if you just chuck it out there. But like, I love that it's a mobile terrain piece, right? Like you put a butcher slaughtermaster within it, and then they occupy it like the shrine, like the Luminous shrine.
Yeah.
And they float around, and they do some mortals within 18 inches to 3 enemy units. Like, it's not damaging your people anymore, right? And it keeps your butcher alive.
Well, it doesn't move.
That's true. It doesn't move, but you're right. It doesn't move, but it's an 18-inch. Like,
yeah, it's like some fine enough 18-inch splash.
I like it.
Wound damage. Okay. I mean,
so,
I would take the maul pot every time, just because I think it's actually quite useful.
Yeah, the +1 power is nice on it. I will certainly acknowledge that.
And like, I would just put it out there pretty aggressively, and have my people in front of it and be like, "Look, come kill it. I don't care. Like, go for it." Like, I'd rather have the power and have it out there as a thing. If somebody, like, my butchers are standing in front of it or whatever, my people are in front of it. And, like, if people want to go waste time and go kill the thing, go ahead. Like, I'm just going to eventually dump it and then be done. So.
Yeah.
Okay, and that's it. Ogre's done. Like, overall, clearly with the Ogres, it goes without saying the Gutbuster side feels way stronger than the monster truck side, but I think the monster truck side has some interesting play. The biggest problem is there's no tricks. There's no tricks.
Yeah,
it's playing straightforward Warhammer, much like a lot of the Gitz stuff we saw. Just like, you are playing straightforward Warhammer into armies that very much do not play straightforward Warhammer. Like, you are going to be fighting Kruleboyz and Nighthaunt and all these other things that are going to be like in combat with you and then charging, and it's like, I'm sorry, what? I just have like the abilities it says in the book. Right, and that is the great problem of all of the Ogres. Like,
yeah,
I mean, it's the problem with everything. Okay, all right. Oryx, the War Clans. I think we're gonna start. We'll break this up. We'll start with Ironjawz. Okay.
Okay.
And then we'll do the
never. In the history of anything, have there been two things that are together that are so unlike?
Exactly. Ironjawz battle traits. Your mighty destroyers. I hate it. Thanks. It's one of the most powerful things they could give you, and I hate it. I hate it so much. And your Wah sucks now. Okay, and yes, you can only use it once.
Can you unpack why you hate it?
Because I didn't get into Ironjawz to use fiddly little combat Johnny tactical movement and trip people up and make it so they fail their battle tactic accidentally, because I drifted into combat 2.9 inches away in the hero phase and stopped their unit. Now their unit's in combat and it can't charge, and yada yada yada, which is what this ability is actually for. It's very powerful. Yes, I played Ironjawz against Khorne, and it felt like the most like fiddly, tiny, dancing ballet movement game in history. I found the whole experience incredibly frustrating. When, like, why I wanted to play Ironjawz was to run forward and crump.
Yep.
And
it's so funny.
Like, bad.
It's so funny to me because this is the army. I've gotten some games in with Ironjawz. My son's looking at taking Ironjawz this fall, and man, I just tell you, like, I was so disappointed with this part of the book.
Mm-hmm.
It seems like a real miss, and I don't know how else to say it.
Yep, it's real bad, and and I will say this again: the results we have so far say it's real bad. So sure, those don't mean anything, but I believe it.
Yeah.
Okay, your battle formations are natural disaster, where your non-heroes get if you roll an 8+, you get +1 to attack. Pay attention to that. It's one of your strats going forward. Grunna Stampede sounds like it would be cool, but it's really not, because by the time you get any kind of movement bonus out of it, it's too late. You're already dead. Smashin' and Bashin', how dare you? How dare you? At long last, sir, have you no decency to name the best ability we used to have, to name this crap on offer here, this absolute utter trash, after the best ability we had?
Yeah.
For the first time in each turn that you kill somebody with a fight ability, you had 1 to hit rolls for combat attacks made by the next. Not even like the rest of your people. The next. Cool. You mean, like, think about what that actually means, Tom. You charge in with 2 units. Okay?
Yep.
You kill their unit. Who are they fighting with before you get to access that +1 to hit? Could it be the other unit that was fighting your unit getting +1 to hit that will now be vastly diminished by the unit you charged it into? Probably. Garbo.
Yeah. It should be able to fight immediately and with +1 to hit.
And then the one you're actually going to take, which is Weird Fist, because it's simply the best one. It gives your Ironjawz infantry a ward of 6 up. Because the only build for Ironjawz now is that actually, I think, can win games, is mostly a bunch of Ard boys standing around in massive packs having 6 up wards, alpha bunkering on points, and doing nothing else. And hoping
and they're like, come at me, bro.
Yep.
And when you do, they shield bash you and then just grind you down.
Steven, no, I think Beast Claw is absolutely better than Ironjawz. Absolutely. I don't think it's close. Beast Claw can actually move, which is a neat ability. Alright. Your heroic traits are wholly underwhelming. You could take the Mega Bossy to get the +1 to charge rolls. It's fine. And you could take, but realistically, you're just going to take the redeploy thing because it actually is quite useful for just getting your people moving forward. Like, that's actually what you're doing. You're just redeploying and getting another 4-inch move forward. So now you Mighty Destroyers 3 and you move 4 and you push and you redeploy 4. What a great time to earn my 11 inches in tiny increments. Okay. And then your artifacts are all bad. You're going to take Amberbone to get the +1 red. I mean, that's what you'll take. It's neat that it's a deployment phase ability, but so you can like, oh, pick a different weapon. You're not going to. You're just going to, whatever. Okay. Your spell lore. It's fine. It's fine. Like, it's not bad. You're not going to have a ton of wizards, so it doesn't. Unlimited spells don't actually matter. You'll have 1 wizard. And you'll be able to give a unit crit 2 hits, which is like, okay, it's cool. Mighty Edbutt is dumb, and Big Hand is a teleport, and teleports are generally good. So
yeah, especially off turn teleports.
Sure. It casts on a 7, so good luck. But you do have a reasonable shot at it for various and sundry reasons. Your prayer lore, which is just your war beats. I mean, like, okay, thanks. I guess these are prayers now. That's fine. The unlimited prayer is 1 to charge rolls, but if it's 8+, you get to charge 3d6, which is really good. It's just really good. Your Get 'em Beat is a good unlimited prayer, and the important part is it lasts until the start of your next turn. So you actually can use it for the counter charge off turn. This is a good prayer. Okay.
Yeah.
Your Fixin' Beat is like hard to use because almost anything you want to heal is not going to be wholly within 12 of your War Chanter. Like, it's going to be your Maw Crusher, who is probably too far away. And Kill a Beat, the thing that we always used to rely on to actually do damage. The problem is it's only for the rest of the turn. It's still fine, but War Chanters themselves are drops. Each War Chanter is a drop. If there was ever a thing that should have been a bonus hero, it should have been these guys. But like Ironjawz are just naturally super high drops, and that's really bad for them. Because you do not want to be like in a position to go first. You do not have the units to go out and take the flanks. You basically have very bad first turn battle tactics choices with this army. It's rough. It's a rough life out there, son.
Yeah.
Okay. Now all of a sudden, Kruleboyz stuff, which we will do, but we'll come back to. I got to now zip past all the Kruleboyz units for reasons I
They're
don't
just
understand.
teasing us.
Where are we at?
You want to talk about
There we are.
Kragnos in these two armies?
Sure. Yeah, that's fine. Kragnos is pretty decent in an Ironjawz army because everything else in your army is bad. So, by default, he's raising the water level.
Well, and related to that, he's going to benefit from all of the other abilities that are in the faction, given that he has the Ironjawz keyword. And so he's targetable with a bunch of stuff, a bunch of buffs, and he's giving a bunch of 4 movement units a 3d6 charge.
Yeah. Yeah.
So like
I mean,
all
you
of
have a
those
prayer that
things,
could accomplish the same thing, but yes.
he just does it. And so like if there was ever a spot arguably for Kragnos, it's probably in a orc army.
Mm-hmm.
But it's sad that he has to carry that he has to shoulder that weight.
Yeah. Gordorak. I like him. He's pretty good.
It's so funny because you were so not hot on him initially, and I actually think he is one of the good, like one of the solid picks. Let me say it that way. For Ironjawz, if you're looking for like the tools he brings are unique and needed in the army.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, again, his anti blah 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 rend is pathetic because heroes and monsters aren't what you want to be fighting, and what you will rarely fight, to be honest. You'll fight infantry and cavalry, so that's basically Ipsum Lorem text most of the time. And beyond that, he's rend 1, which will just mean he's pillow fisted against certain armies. You know, which is unfortunate. But he makes it so you also get +1 to hit on the one turn you use your Wa, which is like not nothing
Much
on an
needed.
army of mostly 4-ups. It's actually a really good buff. And you know, he can like do some stuff to enemy monsters, which is fine. So there you go. You know, and yeah, like he's 20 health on a 3-up save. Okay. He's I don't even I'll give him a 6 out of 10 at best. I legitimately think either Maw Crusher is probably a whiff in this army.
I don't know. I built a couple ones since the game that I played, and I think that he is the other ad, honestly. I think he is what gives viability to the army because he has mobility, he has punching power, and he can turn the tide with that +1 to hit on the turn that you need it.
Yeah, it's a big deal. Like, I don't want to understate it. It is a big deal on an army that is like literally on 4-ups universally, right?
Yeah.
And like very susceptible to neg-1s to hit. So at any rate, the regular mega boss is on Maw Crushers 420 points. No. Nope. His passive smash through does not do what it says. It doesn't do anything like that. It doesn't let you move barely anywhere. You can like scoot around a unit if you only charge.
And it's a pylon. Don't forget, it's a pylon.
Right.
So he can't move away from units that it's already in combat with.
Yep. Like, exactly. It's fine. He's fine. He's rend 1. Again, if you, at least he has anti-infantry, which is good. Like, straight up, that is good. But like, God forbid this
not
guy
against
fall
all the
under a neg 1
cav.
hit. Sure.
Not against all the cav that he's going to be facing off against.
Sure. I mean, this guy falls into neg 1 to hit or something like that and isn't fighting infantry. You will be amazed at your 420 point model does basically the equivalent of 0 damage.
Yep.
And he is not that fast. Like, he'll get flat-footed by the faster enemy cav because he doesn't have the movement tricks like he used to have, right? Easily, like, Dawn Riders are 14 inches compared to this guy's 10. Let's not kid ourselves here. Okay.
Yep.
All right. The Mega Boss on foot. I want to love him. I really do. I've tried to use this guy so many times. So I've got a lot to say about this guy, and I'm going to try to do it quickly.
Yep.
He's 8 health on a 3-up save. He's actually very fragile. The get stuck in, lads. Why is it on a 2-up? Just let him pick a brute unit and give him +1 attacks. There is a strat here of like heavy brute, heavy bonus to attacks. The get stuck in, lads, works fine. Okay, it works fine. It will suck the times you roll 2 up, but it's fine.
Yeah.
Okay. His reaction is basically impossible to use. You'll read it and be like, oh my god, this guy can give 2 attacks to a brute unit. No, he cannot. He cannot. Because I have to fight with him first, and his reaction doesn't pull the brutes in to follow up and fight. It should. That would be cool. But not only do I have to fight with him first, which then exposes the brutes to a crackback, which they are very fragile. Okay. But then also, I then have to still roll the 3 up to give him the +1 attacks. And like, yes, in the magical circumstance and in Magic Christmas Land where all that stuff comes together and you landed the 8+ to charge and yada, 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 your brutes are going to be on like 7 attacks. And it's going to be amazing because they will kill anything.
Sure.
Okay.
Yep.
But that is so hard to accomplish. I have tried this guy in so many configurations, and every time he just dies, and I've managed to pull off that reaction without the brute unit that I had bonused it to dying once. It's not worth it. War Chanters. Sorry. The Mega Boss, by the way, is 230 points as well. 230 points, Tom, for this 8 health guy. Skip.
Yeah. Like, come on. He's not Eltharion.
Yeah, exactly. The War Chanter, it sucks that he's a drop. He is only 120 points. He's a priest. Don't worry about those extra ritual points. That's never going to happen, so it doesn't matter. He's there to be a priest and give your units the appropriate prayers.
What I don't understand is why is he a 4-up save? Everybody else that's armored identically to him is a 3-up.
Because he holds his arms up too much, and that's the soft spot.
Oh, clearly that's it.
The Weird Knob Shaman is sadly probably a thing you're going to actually take fairly often.
And maybe multiples.
Yep, and maybe multiples. Again, it's its own drop, but it's 130 points. And he becomes a 2-cast wizard around Ironjawz units that have 10 or more models wholly within 12.
Which is Ardboys.
10 brutes or Ardboys, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, either a brute unit that hasn't lost any models or Ardboys.
Yep. And he's a perfectly fine caster. Like, being power level 2 is cool. So, brutes. Yep. Brutes are incredibly devastating, right? 3 attacks each on 4s and 3s, rend 1, damage 2, and then they've got 1 unit with the Gore Choppa on the same profile but damage 3. They've got the anti-infantry. Messin is a really strong ability that absolutely screws with the core fundamentals of the game because it's just like, it just turns off the entire unit's ability to contest objectives. It's wonderful. Infantry is very common. It's fantastic. Brutes are 200 points for 5 of them. They will die like they are made of paper. Because there is a lot of stuff in this game that has crit mortals now, and it doesn't take much of that to just kill your brutes. They just die.
Yep. Like,
they are very fragile, and they are very, very slow. Right? We're talking about a unit with a 4-inch move. As I said, in best case, you can take a unit, 10 of them, Mighty Destroyers them, redeploy them, move them. You know, like, you can do all that stuff and get them out there, and then potentially have them on a 3d6 charge. And
but you have to work for it.
Yeah, you got to like dump everything into this unit of brutes that costs 400 points and will still die reasonably easily.
And when you do that, they're going to move away from the hero that's supposed to be giving them +1 attack.
Right. Yeah. Correct. So that's that.
Let's talk about my boys.
Oh, obviously, hold on. I want to go back up because if I don't mention this, somebody's going to call me out in the comments. I'm just going to zip back up here real quick. If you take the natural disaster, right? Anytime you have the 3d6 charge option out of either the spell or Kragnos, you obviously are much more likely to roll the 8+ and get the +1 to attacks. So I didn't ever explicitly say that, but it was worth putting a fine point on that. That's why Kragnos and the extra dice on the charge are really good in natural disaster.
Yeah.
All right, the real rock stars of the army, the Ardboys, much to my chagrin. They're 4s and 3s, 2 attacks each, rend 1, damage 1, but they're on a 3-up save, 2 health. You get 10 Ardboys for 180 points, so 20 health on a 3-up save. They have anti-charge +1 rend, and in any combat phase, they get to do their shield bash. Normally on a 6-up, it's 1 mortal. But you're going to take the Ardboy Big Boss. He's a bonus hero with this. We'll talk about him in just a second. And he makes it trigger on a 5-up, which means that a unit of 20 of these things for 360 points has 40 health and will kick back basically 3 or 4 mortal wounds. Or no, sorry, more than sorry, I apologize. 6 to 8 mortal wounds just for fighting it, which is pretty great. And then they can actually, like, they're a good porcupine. They move forward. They alpha bunker. They're a ton of wounds. They're reasonably hard to kill. It's great.
They could be a bodyguard for your general.
Yep, they can be a great bodyguard unit. They're a fantastic, like, bodyguard of the neg 1 to attacks trigger, right?
Yep.
So, you know, like, it's good. It's good. And Branu, I disagree. I think Chaos Warriors are so much better than Ardboys. I think Chaos Warriors are incredible for what they do. Like, these guys actually kill things. Chaos Warriors don't actually kill anything. Like, these guys can do the mortal wounds, which is nice. But, like, Chaos Warriors are just unkillable in the right build. They're walking around like neg 1 to be wounded, blah, 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 bonus after bonus. But they're good.
Now, on the other side of the coin, far from Ardboys.
Yeah, Gore Gruntas. Yes, a classic orc strategy. Stay behind and get charged. Yeah, that is the strat. That does seem to be the winning strat. Gore Gruntas are meant to be heavy anti-cav. Okay, that's fine. They don't actually do any damage at damage 1. Like, actually math this out with me, Tom. Okay?
I know.
But we're just going to do it.
I took a unit of 6 of these, hoping that life
and
would
I
be
killed
different.
them with cav.
Yes.
I killed these with cav. I just want to point that that's the point on it.
In the
with
grind.
cav that was actually 2 damage. Right.
Correct. In the grind, you killed these with cav.
Alex, I'm glad to hear it. Like, these guys are almost truly a skip. That's how close they are to being just bad. You got 6 of them, let's just say. Okay?
Yep.
Right? Against cav, you've got 19 attacks on force.
Yep.
Again, I'm just going to always assume no bonuses because you never have the command points to all out attack all the time, right? So,
of course.
So 16 attacks on force. I also won't assume penalties, which are incredibly common. So, or no, sorry, 19 attacks. So let's round up. You hit with 10. Congratulations, you beat the odds, right?
Sure.
You wound with 6. They save 4, okay, or 3 or something like that, right?
Right.
Depending on their save, because cav tend to have high saves. Like cav are all 3 or 4 saves, right?
Yep.
And what you get is an average of what, 3 damage against most other cav. You lift a pony if you're lucky.
Yes. With 6 of these guys.
Right. Now, yes, they also have the tusks, and the tusks are +1 damage on the charge and all of that, but they have no rend.
Right. So the tusks will bounce off against enemy cav.
Right. Like, I've taken these things into a big unit of enemy cav and had them lift, like, a horse or 2. It's like, okay. Cool.
Yep.
They are at best a mobile pinning unit. At best. And they're pretty poor at that.
I don't think they pin well. Like, this is your battle tactic unit, unfortunately, because it's your 9-inch move.
Sure.
So you have to take 2 units of 3 of these to go out to your flanks. And that's 400 points, almost, that you've wasted to do battle tactics.
Yep.
Badly.
Yeah, exactly. You have no, like, easy side run units. This is it. Like, a unit of 3 pigs and a unit of 3 pigs running around at basically 400 points to try to pray for a battle tactic. It's really hard. This is a very hard battle tactic army.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember getting into turn 2 and looking at my list and going, I can do nothing.
Mm-hmm.
I got terrain turn 1.
Sure. Zalgrok is really good. Yeah, Zalgrok's good. Like, I don't know what else to say. He's 210 points. He's very expensive, but he can take any Ironjawz, and his spell is what makes your previously aforementioned Ardboys into an absolute murder machine, because he Power of the Great Green Gods them and makes them crit mortal, and that'll be on a 3-up rerollable if you've got Clonk, which you do, and so on and so forth, right? And the Clonk and the Tongs. And that's just incredible, because now that unit that's got the Ardboy Big Boss and already was doing 6 to 8 mortal wounds, when they actually swing and make all those attacks, is doing another basically 6 to 10 mortal wounds. Like, yeah, they're just going to chop anything up. They're a great porcupine. Like, Ardboys are legit. I cannot state this enough. A unit of 20 Ardboys backed by Zogrok is with an Ardboy Big Boss burrowed in the center is legit.
Like, it is a death trap. If you go into it, it will likely lift stuff. If not this turn, next turn.
Yeah, agreed completely. Yep. And by the way, the crit mortal is until the start of your next turn as well, so it's a really good buff.
Yeah. Yeah, I think the way to play this army, honestly, is probably 2 blocks of 20.
I agree. Completely agree with that. 2 blocks of 20 Ardboys is 720 points. Zogrok is 210. Right, the Ardboy Big Boss is 130. You're gonna put 1 in each unit. That's the build, right? Then some pigs down the side for
you could probably do a priest and a wizard and a wizard, or a wizard and a warjaner.
Yep.
And those units will be able to give them a like, you're gonna bury them in those.
Yeah, and you have almost no table control.
Ardboys, no. No, your job is to push in and force them to make bad decisions.
Yep. The Ardboy Big Boss is whatever. His reason for existing is that he adds 1 of the shield bash rolls for Ardboys, and he sits in the middle of that unit and makes them crit on a 5-up.
And that's what you're going to do with them.
Mortal on a 5-up with their bash.
Yep.
That's what he does. It's fine. It's a perfectly fine roll. He's a bonus hero, so that's good.
Yeah. It's the one good thing.
Yep. The Rekkas, I don't know what the point of these guys is. They can run and charge, but they don't do much of anything. They come in units of 3 for 130 points. They're to round out your list, I suppose, if you have 130 points left.
Hypothetically, they have a 5-up ward save.
Hypothetically, but they're 5-up with 9 health. Like, okay.
Yep.
Cool. And then... So I do want to talk about the big pigs first, just a second, because of a fun thing.
Yeah.
There's a fun thing to mention this. So the Tusk Boss on Maw-Grunta, he's 300 points. He can only take Maw-Grunta Gougers, the Maw-Grunta with Hack and Crew, or any cavalry. So his regiment sucks.
Yeah.
Okay. Because he can basically only take the other big pigs, which are fine. The big monster pig is actually, I think, one of the better units in the army. Or bad units. But the interesting part about this is just a comment on unstoppable momentum. Okay. Each time this unit uses a charge ability, it gains 1 momentum point. Each time it uses a run ability, it gains 2 momentum points. It can have a maximum of 3 momentum points. Okay. Relevant note here. You can charge anytime. You don't need an enemy within 12 inches to declare a charge. You can just charge. Okay? Yep. So, like, it's here. The nearest unit is 48 inches away. I declare a charge. Failed. Get a momentum point. Okay?
Yep. So you can jump up to 3 at the top, as soon as you go.
Correct, because redeploy is also a run ability. And so if you redeploy your pig... then obviously you're not gonna redeploy and charge because whatever.
But you could run it, or you could run in your turn, right?
Yep, sure.
Go up to 2, and then counter charge and jump to 3 for combat.
Sure. Yes, it is very easy to get them to 3 momentum points, which is cool because it's meaningful. The Maw-Grunta's tusks going to 5 damage is like, it's not nothing. It's 5 attacks on 4s and 2s, Ren 2, damage 5. It's like, that's actually a pretty good attack, right?
Yeah.
And his little
a Stonehorn.
Yeah, it's good. The Brute Ragers, okay. They have strike first, which I think is...
I like them better. I like them better than the other ones. So here's the deal with these guys. I actually like these as small, like, missiles.
Sure.
Because they can take the buffs of the brute buffs.
They do. They do accept all the brute buffs. Yes.
They accept the brute buffs, which is the one buff is hero phase. So you can buff them up with 4 attacks of pop, send them out with a run and charge, and when they come in, they strike first. So they're going to deliver their damage. The anti-monster is not going to be as big of a deal, but I actually like these in the orbit. Like if you are going to go with the brute, if you're going to go with a brute followed by with a big boss, or not a big boss, with a mega boss next to them, having like a pack of 3 of these or even 6 of these, I don't hate as a single like first. You launch that out first, and then the actual brutes clean up.
Yeah, that's fine. Branu, you don't have to successfully charge to use this ability.
It just says you have to use the ability.
You have to use a charge ability, and in the book, it specifically defines using ability as declaring it.
Yep.
Okay. So you don't have to have charged. It doesn't say in here each time this unit charges or successfully charges or anything like that, right? It says uses a charge ability, and use is simply the declare. That is very explicit in the rules. Okay.
For better or worse, right now.
For better or worse. The Maw Grunta with Hack and Crew, I think, is one of the better ones because this guy is 270 points. He's still a monster. He can fit in most of the other things. He can get the full momentum bonus. It's the same stuff. And his rampage is actually pretty good. Because it's only in your movement phase. You have to still be in combat with them.
Yep.
It's relatively hard to trigger, but if it comes to that point, it actually is pretty decent in what it does. So,
yeah. You want to talk about the Maw Grunta Gougers?
Yeah, sure. The Maw Grunta Gougers. So these are 220. This is obviously the little one. Still has, again, the momentum thing going on. And it is interesting that he can give Strike Last to an enemy pretty easily, like with the momentum points. So it's definitely not a bad rampage as rampages go. So,
yeah, agreed.
Yep. And then now we'll go to Kruleboyz. Okay. All in all, IJ are in a really rough spot. Like I'd love to tell you otherwise, folks, but like, what does my 4.0 Ironjawz army compromise? The same stuff I've always ran, and it's really terrible because I don't have like 50 painted Ard boys.
What fixes this army?
Something, anything, more damage, more movement. I don't know, man. Like something, a point, a purpose to their existence.
Does a 20% point decrease fix it?
I don't care, man. I don't want cheap bad units. No, write better rules.
I mean, I agree with that, but we'll have to get better rules.
I'd rather they just be bad than give me 20% off the points. I really would. I don't want that as the fix. I don't want a crappy army of bad rules that feel bad to play.
That's fair. That's fair. Well, then what that means is that they need to fix them in the battle tome when it drops.
Yeah, when you get to put out a battle tome, just write actual rules instead of whatever you did here. Okay. Next up, Kruleboyz. Boy, talk about a shift.
Talk about a glow up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, the Kruleboyz. Okay. I mean, okay, this is one of the 5 strongest armies in the game. Period. End of story. There we go.
Yep.
Your battle traits are amazing. You get your dirty tricks. You get 1 per phase. Sort of. We'll talk about it in a minute. And they get progressively harder. Who cares? You're going to use them in the way that you need to use them. Namely, to shut off like charge +1 damage. Inflict wounds is really strong. You can, in any movement phase, teleport a unit. So in units where you really need to teleport, you'll keep that one on the 2-up. You can do the venom-crusted weapons in your hero phase. So if you know you're going to fight, suddenly going to 5-up crit mortal is wild. It is insane. And the and if you really, really want to make sure you're killing things, then you'll go up to the noisy racket, so you can give a unit strike last.
Yep.
So, like, to put this
Notice
together
these
for
are-
everybody.
Notice that these are everything but the venom encrusted weapons are any phase, like any of
Yeah,
the
yeah, any.
turn.
Yeah. You can teleport in any movement phase. You can noisy racket in any combat phase. You can lethal surprise in any charge phase. Yeah, that's right. Okay. So, like, let's just construct a universe here, Tom.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
They have a unit of Gut Rippers, one of the scariest units in the game, and you charge them with your big hammer +1 to charge cav or something, right?
Yep.
Maybe they have the crit mortals on, maybe they don't. Let's just assume they don't for the moment. Okay, let's give them not that. And they know this is happening. They've put the unit out there as bait. They didn't need to crit mortal them. So then the first thing they do is they lethal surprise you in the charge phase. So now they do a little bit of mortals to you, but they shut off your +1 damage.
Yep.
Then you go to combat on a 3-up. They make you strike last, right?
Yep.
And then they punch the living crap out of you with their crit mortal attacks.
With
and
20
by the way,
attacks.
there's other buffs we're going to have here.
Yeah. Yes, correct.
Right.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
But this also means that when you chase after their bolt boys, they're just going to pick them up and teleport them somewhere else.
Correct. If you go try to chase their bolt boys, they just leave. Yeah, I mean, like, it is a very high skill floor army, because you have to learn how to use your dirty tricks right, how to hold back, right?
Yep.
And you know, like, but it's just really strong. The most popular one will be Lightfinger, which is you can use sneaky sneaking twice per turn instead of only once. Very strong. Now it'll still increase the number 2-up, 3-up.
I think that that's a trap, actually.
Sure.
Because the actual number of units, like, I've built this out a lot. It's an army that I'm going to be taking to a doubles event this fall, and the problem with it is that the number of units that you actually want to hit with Lightfinger is relatively small. What I mean by that is either it's an unreinforced Gut Rippers.
Yes.
Right? Or
because it can't be more than 10 models, yeah.
Right. Because it can't be more than 10 models, or the shooter, right?
Right.
And so I just, like, to me, it feels like a trap. When because it's going to all, like, every attempt at every bite of that apple is also going to move all your other values up 1 as well. And so the frequency that you're going to be using it and the impact on the rest of your dirty tricks, I don't know that it's worth it. That's me, though.
Yeah, I'll say I watched this one in play and I was very impressed by it, because most of the time the player didn't use it, but then when they needed it, when they were getting pressured, they could just, like, scatter. Right, and then there was no combat, so they didn't need the rest.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's what it gives you. That's what it opens up the option.
Yeah.
For, right.
No, I hear that.
I think a lot of people will just take the claw. It depends on how much, like, shootings and spellcasting and stuff like that there is, because it just shuts off visibility. Right.
Yeah, my fear with that is it's wholly within 3. The whole unit has to be wholly within 3 inches of the terrain piece.
Sure.
And so
there's a lot of unstable terrain you can't stand on.
Right, you can't stand on. And that's my fear, is that if you have a bunch of unstable terrain, especially if you're running, like, any amount of monsters, this doesn't touch them, right?
Yeah.
Or the unit has to be in really weird positions to wrap around terrain pieces.
Sure.
And so, like, through
very
a lot
dependent
of
on the type of terrain on the table. Yeah.
Yes. I actually ended up migrating to a trophy finger. Because I really like the companions in this army.
Okay.
Like, everybody that's mounted, and we'll talk about that. Don't get me wrong. I have a nice contingent of Gut Rippers, right? Like, I think all of that is super important, and yet I really like trophy figure.
Okay, fair enough. All right. Your heroic traits. What are you taking? Because you're the one, you've built this army much and paid much more attention to than I have. So what are you taking here?
So it depends on what I'm running around with, but most of the time, Slippery Scumbag is the right pick.
It's so strong. Again, it's the same ability we've talked about already. The goblins have it, the Skaven have it. Retreating in combat on a 3-up is just really, really strong.
Really good. And you have a number of units that can really just abuse the crap out of this.
Mm-hmm.
Because even if you retreat, you still have a pile-in if you charged.
Right.
So let me paint a picture. Let's say you charge with the unit, I don't know, like the big melee bird, right? Who does mortals on a charge. You charge in, you retreat out on a 3 out to 3 inches. You can't be piled into, or right, you can't
You can't be
pile
piled into, yes.
You can't be piled into based on the new rules. But you can activate your bird then last, pile in, and hit the unit that wasn't allowed to pile into you.
Yeah, it lets you screw with the combat order. You could go sideways into another unit and fight it instead. Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. Yeah, I agree. Slippery Scumbag is like so strong. What about your artifacts?
Swamp Staff every day of the week.
Sure, just for the +1 to power level.
Because this gives you the only 2-cast wizard for 120 points.
Yep.
And your spell lore is really good, folks. Oh, sorry. It's not just a 2-cast wizard. It's a 2-cast wizard with +1 to cast for 120. You can't get that anywhere else in the game right now. It's just not possible. And you have a wonderful spell lore. We'll talk about that. But Swamp Staff for me every day of the week. I know a lot of people really like the Eye Pebble, especially if you're running with like a big block of 20 Gut Rippas. You know, when people come in and try to lift that block, having that 5-up ward is pretty hot. But for me, just that cheap wizard is like, it's worth its weight in gold.
Yeah.
In the army.
Sweat, we're making an interesting point there. Because you're actually using the retreat ability, which is a core ability, you can't actually fight because it's also a core ability in the same phase. It's interesting. So you don't get the pile-in.
Oh, that's a good call.
Good catch. Yep.
Interesting.
About that.
Yep.
Good catch. All right, your lore. Still a really good ability. I played against somebody with that slippery thing, and it just means like the person I played against had the slippery thing as well as the 2 teleport thing, and it was just like whack-a-mole in the extreme, right? Trying to catch.
Yeah, you couldn't lock them down. Yeah.
All right. Okay. So your unlimited spell is a sort of very weak horde hitter spell, which is like
lame.
Okay.
Yeah.
But you've got Choking Mist, which is a very good spell, which is -1 attacks at 18-inch range. That is very nice. And then you have Mystic Shield.
Surprise! Mystic Shield relocated itself to Kruleboyz.
I don't know why it exists here, but it does. It only further reinforces that Gut Rip of Porcupine, because you're just going to put this on them. I don't know why this exists here. I don't know why Kruleboyz got +1 to save. I really wish they would think thematically about the spells that they give armies. This is the incorrect army.
Do you know who likes Mystic Shield? Kragnos. Kragnos likes Mystic Shield.
I'm sure he does. At any rate, it's Mystic Shield, and I can't believe they have it. So whatever. All right.
Yep.
Kragnos again. Okay. Gobsprak. The Mouth of Mork. Sorry, I didn't. Let me flip over to Kruleboyz here. Okay.
Yeah.
He's 380. Okay. I mean, like, he's interesting.
To be clear, I started with Gobsprak.
Yeah,
Originally, I read it knowing how much magic is going to be in the game. I was like, I'm going to do Gobsprak. I'm going to be like shutting down endless spells. It's going to do like kicking back mortals. It's going to be great. But it's not 380 points great.
Yeah.
It's just not. And the reality is this. It hits 14 wounds on a 5-up save. Sure,
like
6-up ward.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, that he can't fight. And all of his combat stuff is anti-wizard.
Yep.
Hard pass.
Agreed. Kill a boss on Corpse Rip of Volcha. Talk about it, Tom.
Now this guy.
This guy rules.
So let's talk about a guy that gets old school ogre charge, monster truck charge.
Yeah, he does. Roll dice equal to the charge roll. Amazing.
4-up, inflict a mortal wound, with a nice suite of attacks. most importantly, that vulture, the talons and beak and the stinger are both companion attacks. So if you're in the appropriate thing, you're crit 2 hits.
Although you have to decide to use crit mortal instead of the crit 2 hits, as far as if I remember right.
There's been some conversation about that. I don't know that if that's the case. Is
Maybe
what I would
trigger
say.
both. Yeah, I'm not sure. I
Yeah,
have to go look.
There's been conversation. There's been quite a bit of conversation about it. But more importantly, you get that all super valuable redeploy 4 inches.
Yep.
Yeah, which is huge.
More things that keep you from dying.
Now it's only gut rip as units for the redeploy.
That's right.
It's not all units.
But this is the way to keep your 20 block, making sure they are where they need to be. It's a way to because the 20 block can't teleport. This is the thing you're using on them.
Yeah, this is how you're getting them where they need to be. And so you can basically charge in, mortal wound, and then just basically slippery bastard out, and stay out of combat.
Yeah, I think he's okay. He's not my actual favorite. We'll get to my favorite in a little while.
No, but what I'm saying is, so what I'll say is this: I have my army built out, and I have a 300 point window that I've been subbing stuff in and out with, and he's in that 300 points. The question is do I want to go to 4 drops with him? I don't really want to go to that many drops, but that's what happens if I want him, is I have to go to 4 drops.
Yeah, by the way, your only bonus hero in this army is the Kruleboyz with Stabgrot, so we'll talk about that when we get there.
Yep.
And he can basically go in almost anything.
Yep.
The Kruleboyz on Great Gnash Tooth. This guy's 220 points for 10 health on a 3-up save. The
best save in the army.
Sure. The Mega Boss on foot is weeping at this. He can give, when he's contesting, he gives 1 to hit for Kruleboyz infantry units. It's fine. But
the objective can't be one you control. It's contesting, but you don't control. And so it's actually only effective for half the time. That's what really killed it for me.
Yeah, he's a skip.
He's just hard to use.
Yes. The Kruleboyz with Stabgrot as a bonus hero. This is the 130 point bonus hero.
Yep.
Is interesting because it makes it so all out attack becomes +1 to hit and wound.
Yep.
Which is not bad. Is not bad. I think you'll actually see him in some armies solely for that buff, solely because he's a bonus hero. If you were paying normally for him, if he was a drop, no way. As a bonus hero, yeah, I think he can be good.
I think there are some builds with him that I think is worthwhile.
Sure. This guy you'll see all over the place. The Merc Knob with Belchabana, not a bonus hero, but you'll still see him. It'll be 1. You only need 1. He'll sit in the middle of a pack in 1 or 2 packs of Gut Rippas and give them all a ward of 6 up all the time.
Yep, and then he'll splash mortals all around him as well.
Yeah, sure. I mean, whatever. He's 120 points to give your big units a 6-up save.
Yep, a 6-up ward. Yep.
Or, what did I say? Sorry. Yeah, 6-up ward. Yeah. And you will take him, and he's good.
Yep.
The Shaman is also strong.
MVP of the army, 120 points, baby.
Yep.
6 health for a 6-up save. He has a pot grot as long as you don't roll a 4. So don't roll 1s and 2s. Then he's at +1 to cast. With that Swamp Staff, he's a 2-cast wizard. He also, by the way, has Mystic Shield that he hands out. On a 3+, he adds a save to rolls of the target for the rest of the turn. On a 1 to 2, he can do some more damage to them, but that's fine. That's fine. I don't care about that. I'm more interested is he has a free Mystic Shield he's passing out once.
He's Mystic Shield number 2 in this army for reasons I continue to not be able to fathom. Yes. It's insane. This is why we talk about Gut Rip as being the scariest thing in the world. Because remember, you're coming into them. They shut off your charge +1 damage. They make you strike last. They're also +2 to save. And they've got a 6-up ward. And they crit mortal on the attacks back. Potentially on a 5-up. The world just gets crazy real fast.
And they're 2 wounds apiece.
Yeah. Well, speaking of, let's talk about Gut Rippas. We're not even done yet. We're not even done yet because the Gut Rippers themselves being 2 attacks, 4s, 3s, crit mortal. Who cares? It's crit mortal is all that. It's the story.
Yep.
The fact they can move to 5, so easy. And then in addition, they'll roll a die, and on a 3-up, they'll make you -1 to hit. So your unit that charged this porcupine is now lost its charge damage, -1 to hit, striking last, right? And if they actually manage to attack back, are fighting a unit with +2 to save, a 6-up ward, right? What's going on here?
Sounds like some Swamp Boggler trickiness to me, some shenanigans.
Yeah, and Gut Rippers are 10 for 170, so you're getting 20 health for 200 points. Or sorry, for 170 points. It's just an incredible deal.
40 for 340.
Yep.
Love it.
They're great. They do need the buffs and the bonuses. If you leave, like, you got to be careful with them because, like, 10 of them on the side that just get charged by something and don't have, like, these buffs on or the tricks available will just die, to be clear. So, like, you do have to be very careful about that.
Now, if you thought Gut Rippers were good, let me introduce you to Monster Killers.
Sure, the Kruleboyz Monster Killers. Talk about it, Tom.
So the Kruleboyz Monster Killers are the Warcry warband. Yes. This unit is same moves, same stat profile. It's only running 7 models, okay? It has a token with it that you can just ignore. But at 7 models, notice that the attack profile has 1 more attack per model and rend and anti-monster with everything else the same.
But it's still
so they're putting out the same number of attacks as the Gut Ripper unit with a better profile for one. What is it?
Technically, they're putting out 1 more.
Oh, you're right, because they have a champion. Yeah, they have a champion, so they're putting out 1 more attack with a better profile.
Yeah.
Is it 140 on these guys?
No, it's 120.
120. I'm sorry. I apologize. So for basically 50% less, almost 50% less, 33% less points.
Yeah, they're really good.
They're really good. And if you do happen to get into combat with a monster, you roll a dice, add a 1 if the monster's damage, they strike last on a 3.
Yep, it's another source of strike last. They're relatively immune to monster rampages, right? They cannot be reinforced, but they're not unique. You can take multiple units of them.
They're so good. They're so good.
Yep.
Like, in most of my armies, I have at least 2 units of these because they're great counterpunch units. Like, and they take the teleport well as they can teleport around the board as well.
Absolutely, they can. Yeah, totally. Swamp Boss Scumdrek, Derek, Skip. The Snatcher Boss on Sludge Rake Beast. I like this guy. I like this guy.
Hello.
Yeah, this is my dog right here. 320. The Mob Wrangler and any Kruleboyz. And he can pass out the Venom, so +1 to damage for the rest of the turn, which is pretty great. And it's for the weapons that have crit mortal. 2 up for that, okay, and that's like 2 up on a D6, not on a D3.
Yep.
Which is pretty great. So did we mention that those attacks that we were talking about coming out of the Gut Rippers that are critting mortals on a 5 up are now damage 2? And so if you don't yet see why this unit through its synergies just absolutely creams units off the table, I don't know what to tell you. Like, this guy is absolutely one of your heroes. Like, he's so good. And he has a weird end of turn rampage that's like cool if the unit happens to live, but hopefully but nothing's ever going to get to the point where you can use it if you've given him the Venom and attacked them with 20 Kruleboyz.
Yeah, no, it's true. He also does, by the way, he's a companion, so he's running around if you're in the build with crit 2 hits. Yeah.
Yep. Absolutely. I like this guy a lot. He's a great target to put the 3 up I walk away from combat on, so that way no one can ever catch him. It's really good.
Yep.
The Marsh Crawler Slogoth. It's it gives you run and charge if you want.
Yep.
I actually go ahead.
He's an 180 point, 170 point, or is it 160?
190.
190. I knew he was in that window. War Machine, ironically enough, that gives run and charge. His entire purpose is to give run and charge, which now gives your Kruleboyz the ability to reach out and touch somebody, right? To send those folks into the line.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
If he does get into combat, is what I would say. Again, I like the crit 2 hit. So those 2 damage attacks all have crit mortal. Yeah, they're fine. But it's not gonna end any stories. But this is a wonderful enabler for the army. Is what I.
Well, let me talk about why I actually do like this guy. Because I actually don't picture myself running and charging much on my own turn. Okay. I don't think that's actually how I'm playing this army. Like in this bold shoot my unit straight out.
Yep.
Like I'm playing a buff piece army where I need to be synergistic and kind of control castle, right?
Yep.
Now the reason I like this guy is because if you have always on run and charge, then you can redeploy and countercharge.
Yeah.
It turns that on.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
And so being able to turn on redeploy and countercharge, that I actually like a lot. Okay. So that is to me, and that very much fits with the sort of Kruleboyz tricks you're trying to pull off there. In your turn, you're deciding the pace of what they do. You have your big giant porcupine unit, they decide not to charge it, you redeploy it forward to make it harder for them to avoid it. They still do. Screw you, I countercharge you and kill you anyways. Strike last and kill you. Right? That I like.
Yeah.
So.
And he also heals a D3 every turn.
Yeah, sure. It's fine. It's not bad. It's fine.
Well, I'm just saying splash damage, things like this will often get whittled down by splash damage or random shooting.
Doesn't. Yeah, you've got to focus on him, and he won't get focused on in this army.
Right.
The Break-A-Boss on Mirebrute Troggoth is really good if slow. Like, this dude is just good. Again, this tends to be high drop, but you actually don't care. And when you're Kruleboyz, like, you have all the tools to not give a flying hoot about it. Like, battle tactics are a breeze for you. Like, if you're playing with any of your abilities, like, you've got the units to accomplish everything you need. You don't mind moving out and, like, alpha bunkering. Like, they give you the first turn and, like, move into the middle. You're like, okay, sure. Happily, come charge me and die. This is the rock upon which you will die.
Yeah.
I am the breaker of the waves. At any rate, yeah, Break-A-Boss is like incredibly damaging. Takes that companion buff you were talking about incredibly well. Heals like a madman. Can just do unbelievably good attacks. Like he swings so much because he damages himself. Then he does a ton of extra attacks. Then he heals himself in the next turn. It's wild.
Yep.
Right.
Yep. There's not much that will stand toe to toe with this guy.
He's 220 points. He hits well above his weight. He's fantastic. Love this guy. Again, you're just heavy drops in Kruleboyz, and I think you just accept that. It's like an army where you don't care. You actually have the luxury to not care.
Yep.
Hobgrot Slittas are 10 for 100. They're like not even that good of a deal on the wounds ratio, sadly, compared to like your Gut Rippas or whatever. No. I don't know what their purpose is. I
don't know. I know people have wanted to imagine them with Scumdrek, but you're throwing good money after bad.
I agree. The Bolt Boys are fine in their current incarnation.
Yeah, I agree with that.
They're fine.
I run a pack of 6. I think a pack of 6 is the perfect number.
Agreed. Completely agreed. It's good to have pressure. It's good to have the unit you can teleport and then shoot things and so on and so forth. Right? It's fine. It's fine.
I love considering you putting this in my generals thing.
For the priority
giving
target,
it
+1 to hit and damage.
Giving the +1 to hit and wound. Because then they're teleporting around with like when they teleport, they're generally on 3s and 2s or 2s and 2s if they can do aim shot.
Yeah, I mean, exactly. I like them very much. Latin, I'm not sure. I'd have to look at that and say some abilities sometimes say you must declare it, and that one might say that. I don't have it right in front of me. Like certain things, like the Bad Moon says you must declare this ability, right? But yeah, Bolt Boys pack of 6. By the way, Bolt Boys are 3 for 110. perfectly reasonable cost for what you get out of them. They're not going to kill the world. They're not going to completely lift units, but they will put ranged pressure on things in a very real way. So.
And you can like in this army, you can't leave objectives unguarded or lightly guarded.
Right.
It's
or
not
they're
possible.
gone. They're gone.
Or
You're
they're
stealing with this, and then you're getting shot by the people who stole it. Yeah, it's 100% the case.
Yep.
The Beast Skewer Killbow. So this thing is interesting at 1 for 160. And the reason is because there are monsters aren't super common, but there are some around, and man, does this put the fear of God into them.
It does. It so does.
It really does. Like, I was playing Slaanesh against Kruleboyz armies. I played Kruleboyz like 3 times, I think, and something like that, 2 or 3 times, I don't remember. But one of the times I was playing Slaanesh, and I had like Sinessa and Dexessa out, who were like 10 health monsters with a 5-up save, right? Yep. And they like lived behind this building that was blocking terrain. Okay.
Yeah.
So I couldn't be seen.
Because if they poke their head out, they're dead.
Right. Until it was much later in the game, and I could like, okay, bust out, guys, let's go, let's run, like just flying out on the side and right. Trying to get in somewhere else.
So that D6 damage against monsters, you can declare once per shooting phase. So even if you have multiple kill bows, you can only do this with one of your kill bows. Mm-hmm. Okay. But that kill bow is the shots from that bow are 6 damage against monster. And so you have 2 attacks on 4s and 2s, or if they didn't move and weren't set up, on 3s and 2s against monsters, neg 3 rend 6 damage.
Yeah. It is like, absolutely the fear of God in monsters.
This is some of the best 160 points you'll ever spend.
It's like a complete silver bullet that's generally just worth putting in the list.
Right, because it'll do damage against other stuff.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah.
But against monsters, you can just like...
They die. There are many monsters you will just kill if you resolve both shots.
Yeah, like you just simply... you have you create a 24-inch no threat zone against monsters.
Mm-hmm.
It's a great unit to put behind the line of those 20 gut rippers that they have to get through.
100%. Yep. Yes, that is true. You can't do it with covering fire. It's only your shooting phase, but who cares? Like, it's okay.
I'm okay with that. Like,
and then we're back.
Yeah, you're still rend 3. You're still rend -3. Rend -3 D6 damage against those monsters.
Yeah, to be clear, Kruleboyz are not Night Haunt. They're not bent sideways, but they are really strong. Like I said, I would easily place them as one of the top 5 armies in the game right now. Stats from this last weekend, depending. People are still playing their own armies. This is an extremely high skill floor army. Using your dirty tricks right is really complicated and tricky, actually. But it's got an army. It's got all the right pieces. It's got all the right tools. Okay.
Yep.
Last army. Here we go. Okay. Suns. This should be quick. Suns. Their battle traits are interesting because they're all just rampages. They're all just rampages that your whole force can do, right? So you just get a lot of rampages, and that's cool. Timber still sucks. Why do I have to roll off to get my thing? You just killed a 500-point unit, and yet I don't get to do my cool, fun thing. Wow, thanks. Great rule, guys. Yeah, that D3 mortal damage would be way too strong if I was just able to do it. Give me a freaking break. Okay, anyways, these with destruction armies, I don't know why they're like... GW does not know how to write a Timmy armies. That's the bottom line. That really is what it comes down to.
Indeed.
Put me in, coach. I got this. Okay. At any rate, scrolling down to the points here. Your rampages are all fun and have different uses, and you will use them. Like Colossal Slam is fun. The Earth-Shaking Roar got a lot better. Yeah, it's cool. It's cool. Or not got a lot better. Sorry, it's still Roar. It does what it does. It's fine. Battle formations. I am absolutely all in on Boss Tribe because your Mega Gargant can pull your Baby Gargant unit into fighting, and my general formation is going to be 3 Megas and 3 Babies, and you can chain activate then with your Mega pulling the 3 Babies in, and that's actually a tremendous amount of damage you have the potential to heap on them. You are chain activating 1,000 points of your army. Right?
Yeah.
That's what that is. That like you got to think about how much is actually getting pulled in. Taker Tribe, your artifacts are not generally worthwhile enough. Breaker Tribe, I don't want to stand. I don't want my Mega Guardians to have to stand that close together. Like, that's, you need to be able to be, you only have 4 models or whatever, effectively, right?
Yep.
You need to be able to spread out. And Revel in War is like jump up and down isn't that good that I want to do it multiple times. It's Big Mouth easily, without a doubt. Chain activating your babies is really strong. The generally on heroic traits, I'm going to take Rabble Rouser. Just get the extra +1 to charge. You want to have, you're not that fast, so having a just flat +1 to charge is fine. Wholly Within 12 is a smaller bubble. It should be 18, but it's doable. If you don't want that, you take Monstrously Tough and just get 5 more wounds in your army, and that's fine too. The Furious Temper is absolutely terrible and dumb. Your artifacts, I really like the Mantle of Tuscan Horns. For the rest of the turn, add 1 to hit rolls for combat attacks made by friendly Sons of Bahamut units while they're wholly within 12 of this unit. Again, great for that chain activation. You got a big turn, you're bringing in both units, you're going to chain activate, pop this off, give everybody +1 to hit without any all-out attack. Great stuff, right? I don't actually care about the manifestation lore. I think that's a trap. You only get 1. Everybody else gets more, like, whatever. The only other one that tempts me is the Amberbone Totem, because it gives me run and charge. So, again, it's more of that kind of stuff, right? So, I also don't hate the King Slaughter Cowl, but, again, you're so rarely in combat with heroes, it's tough. They get 6 artifacts because of the ability to take an extra artifact as a command trait, Willard. So, like, if you do take that one, you would, if you're going to take that, if you take that one, you take King Slaughter and Mantle of Tuscan Horns, or Amberbone Totem. Like, some combination of those 3 is what you end up taking. Kragnos. Nope. King Broad. Yep, every army starts with King Broad. Let's go. He's a War Master. He's your general every time. He's really good, and he gives you a priest, and he is worth every penny. You get 3 command points around with this army, because 1 of them is spent for King Broad praying his Power of Behemoth prayer. It is a really good prayer. You are not limited to only using them each once per game anymore, and if you get a 10 up, you get to pick 2, which is wild. This is so good, because he can either add 1 rend to everybody's main attack, right? And it's, by the way, it's just to your army. These aren't ranged.
Yep. Right.
Rend of all giants on the board, heal D3 all giants on the board. Sounds minimal. It's a huge deal to heal every giant you have on the board D3. It's a massive deal when you get that off. I honestly, most of the time, end up just spamming Might of the Earth. I off-turn pray it. When I get it, I do it. Right? If I get a 4, I hope the next turn I get a 6 or something. Right? And I just keep spamming heal D3, and it's amazing. Okay, and then obviously turn 1, you're gonna hope for like Shadow of the Mountains or something if you need to get somewhere. But for the like, and when I get 2, or when I think I'm going in for that fight, +1 to hit, +1 to rend. Let's go. Right. That's it. That's all you're doing this for, and he can't be rampaged, which is fun. This army plays almost complete. This is a Timmy army, by the way. This is like my fun Timmy army now. Beast Smasher, nope. Gatebreaker, sure. He's 500 points even. It's 20 points cheaper than Broad. He's still really good. Like, he has a huge attack. The anti-faction terrain is comical and dumb. But, like, you know, he can do work, and he can always just do the 46 mortal damage if you're up against something that's going to actually stop him. But he makes 6 4 damage attacks. Like, what more do you want? The cool thing about giants is none of this stuff is companion weapons, right? So it can't all get buffed by all the various and sundry things. Yeah, Gatebreaker's really good. I don't know what else to say. He's very strong. He still has a 4 damage 6 attack weapon. It's good.
Yeah.
The Kraken Eater is interesting. I have played with him a couple of times. I like his hurled debris. It actually has quite a range for shooting. And his ability to kick objectives is really weird, right? Like, it's just a really weird, unique ability. It's super rule breaky. Stuff him in me net is still really good, especially against stuff like Fire Slayers and things like that want to just like sit there and tank you, or Chaos Warriors or whatever. Being able to just insta-gib like 2 or 3 of them is actually meaningful. Especially when you then combine with stuff like jump up and down and all that kind of stuff. So, you know, it can get there. I don't hate the Kraken Eater. He's 470. I was never a fan of him before. I like him now. Love the War Stomper. I'm actually all about this guy. I know you'd think, Vince, this guy's the worst one. You're right. But he's also the cheapest one. He's 460. And the important part is his Titanic Boulder Club no longer caps, baby. For every 5 models, you get to add 2 attacks for the rest of the phase. Period.
Yep.
So against all these 20 and 40 model units we've been talking about, your big packs of clan rats, of goblins, of zombies, of all these things, right? You just, 20, 40 models, you're just getting actually a ton of extra attacks.
Yep.
So, it's cool. And, beyond that, it's just Force 2s, Ren 2, Damage 2. I've actually been really happy with this guy and playing him. You got to pick your right targets. He goes into big infantry blocks, and he'll generally just jump up. He'll be your jump up and down guy. So he does a bunch of mortals there. Then he'll hurled body someone and kill another one, and then he'll make a just absolute metric ton of attacks. Meanwhile, it's like Broad and the 3 babies somewhere else. Like he's fighting infantry alone, and Broad and 3 babies go into something that needs to be handled. Right? That's generally the way it goes, or something like that. Single man crusher, you're not going to take him right now because the way the points work, you can't like make all the giants work and take a floating single like you used to be able to. So whatever. The mob, in my opinion, is very much worth it. Damage 2 main clubs, Headbutt and Mighty Kick, they get there. Their Gargant Charge actually can do a significant amount of mortal damage, and they also have a stuff them in me bag. They can shove them down their pants, which is just more insta-free slaying. And they have a decent little ranged attack. Yeah, it's 5s and 2s. I don't care. It's just more ranged pressure. So, there you go. Like it's pretty easy. The regiments I'm not going to talk about. Yes, they have them. We'll talk about regiments. You can take giants and other stuff and so on and so forth. And people will. But for the most part, my army's pretty straightforward. It's Broad, a Kraken, or a Gatebreaker, a War Stomper, and a mob.
Yeah, makes sense. Straightforward.
Yep. It's very simple. The army lives and dies in the combat and charge phases. That's it. With the chain activation and the doing the prayers, it's a DPS check army still, and the fact that you can sit there and spam and heal your army like 4d3 wounds every turn is actually incredibly meaningful. Healing an average of 8 wounds potentially per turn, but more than likely per battle round, is you will occasionally just get them off twice in a round. It's just really meaningful. It just slows the DPS down, right? And you are still the king of objective control with this. You're still coming in at like massive numbers. You walk up on an objective, you own that objective. It's a very simple army. And you just play the fundamentals. Up, down, any other way. So there you go. And it's also a 2-drop army. Yes. Because the Kraken Eater, the War Stomper, the Beast Smasher, and the Gatebreaker can all be taken as an eager lout in King Broad's or any of the others things. So it's a 2-drop army. Straight 2-drop, good chain activation, nice bonus to charge, decent movement capabilities with the run and charge on the mob, and 10 inch and the +1 to charge all around. Like it's very straightforward. It's not complicated. You can push your whole army to Ren 3 when you need to. You go into them with 1,000 points. It is still swingy, but it's very straightforward, very simple, very effective. You have no tricks. You just have power. This is how Ironjawz should be, by the way.
Sure. That's not how they are.
Are battle tactics an issue with Gargants? Yes, 100%. They're very hard. But you're 2-drops, so you don't have the first turn problem as much. You will often be able to dictate first turn, and you will just give it away. Right?
Yeah.
You do as the Red Hot Chili Pepper said, and you give it away now. All right, there we go. That's destruction. What do I do with Honor Guard? Generally, I give it to one of the other giants and make it like the +1 to hit and wound thing. It's fine. You don't get much of the wound buff, but it protects you against downside penalties. Okay, so there you go. All right, Tom. Any final thoughts on Destro before we call it a night?
No, I like some of what's here. I think some of it needs a lot of work.
Yeah, agreed. It's the weakest of the Grand Alliances, like by far. We're going to talk about one of the stronger ones next week when we go to Death.
Yep.
But there is a lot of fun here. I've enjoyed Suns. I've played Suns and I really had a good time with it. Ironjawz is tough. I've played a lot of games Ironjawz and have not had a good time. It's very hard. Kruleboyz are super strong. I played Ogors and actually had a really great time. I liked playing Ogors. I thought it was really fun. I think Ogors on foot are very, very strong, and I think BCR has got interesting play, though it is a lot tougher row to hoe than where you used to be. Goblins, I don't know. I don't play Goblins. I've not played against Goblins, so I can't really comment. But on the whole, there's a lot of fun here to be had in Destruction. Like Suns, fun. Kruleboyz, fun. Ogres, fun. No, you don't have the tricks. You got to play the fundamentals really good. Like, because everybody else has such powerful tricks they can use to screw you up, you really got to pay attention when you're playing Destruction. You have to play the most dialed in game of fundamentals you have ever played. You got to always be aware of their reactions, what they're going to do, the abilities on their war scrolls, the tricks that they have, because you don't have them. And so you've got to like outplay them very much as that's happening. So there you go.
So good.
So there you go. Okay. At any rate, hey, what did we get wrong? Tell us down in the comments if you feel like we got it wrong on any units. I want to know for next week so I can apologize. But hey, and if you haven't yet hit like, you should do that. You should hit like. You should subscribe. You should do all those things that make all those dings. It makes you at least 10% cooler, most likely. Not guaranteed. And if you want to support the show, lots of ways you can do it. You can share this video with people. We really appreciate that. Helps others find the show. You can do all those free things we talked about. You can pick up some of your hobby supplies down in the affiliate links below. It's really easy. You need a new painting light, or you need some, maybe you need some, some paints or anything like that. Hey, guess what? All those links right down there below. Easy peasy. And of course, there's our Patreon, focused on review and feedback and taking your next step on your hobby journey. But at any rate, thank you so much for watching. We really appreciate it. It's been a lot of fun. This really is like my favorite Grand Alliance. So, there's that.
Yep.
Other than that, I will say thank you very much. And as always,